Me, Myself, and I, a Nintendo podcast, is a passion project brought to you by a fellow gamer just like yourself. To support this podcast, follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, etc., subscribe to Hitbox Detective on YouTube, and follow me on Twitter at Hitbox Detective. I know everyone says this, but I truly mean it when I say that your support means the world to me. Now, without further ado, let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome. This is episode 24 of Me, Myself, and I, a Nintendo podcast. I'm your host, Ben, aka Hitbox Detective. For first-time listeners, I was a childhood Nintendo fan that recently re-entered the Nintendo ecosystem, and this is a weekly podcast where I discuss Nintendo news, share what I've been playing, and end on a segment I like to call Switch It Up, where I check out the Nintendo Switch online game library and suggest a game for you all to check out. New episodes go live everywhere on Mondays at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That way you can start your week off on the right foot, no matter how early you have to wake up for work. This is still a relatively new podcast, and I would like to answer listener questions, comments, and concerns, so if you would like to write into the show, you can do so by emailing me at memyselfandi.pod@gmail.com or leaving a comment on a YouTube video. This is going to be a different episode of Me, Myself, and I, as it will be a review discussion of Triangle Strategy as opposed to a traditional episode. Joining me this week is the podcast's second guest ever, lordsofgaming.net assistant editor Joe, aka Lord Flame. Joe, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's a big honor. I love your channel. I love what you do, man.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you saying that, and I very much enjoy your writing. I mean, there's not, I feel like Lords of Gaming gives us kind of like free reign to make of it what we will, and you're somebody that I think really grabs the bull by the horns and goes after it, so It does not go unnoticed.
Oh, yeah.
So Joe officially reviewed Triangle Strategy for lordsofgaming.net. If you want to go check that out, go to lordsofgaming.net, type in Triangle Strategy, and I'm sure you'll find it. My personal review of Triangle Strategy went live on my YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it yet, go to youtube.com/hitboxdetective and you can watch that. Here, we're just going to dive in. We'll have a proper review discussion, and then we'll dive into spoilers. So it'll go way past the surface level review that I think we each wrote. I mean, because we don't want to spoil things in our reviews, so here we'll be able to do that. But for those that don't know, Joe, tell us a little bit about your gaming background and yourself.
As I call myself, a certified simpleton, just basically playing whatever comes to mind, whatever is available to me. I've been gaming since I was around 6 years old. Like, the earliest memory that I have is actually playing Pokemon Yellow for the original Game Boy, and I'll always remember how terrified I was that my Pikachu actually got poisoned, and I was like freaking out. I was like, what's going on? I don't know. But it's been kind of crazy going from that to the PlayStation 1 to the original Xbox to PlayStation 2, Xbox 360, just moving along, really. It's been great, and I really love what Nintendo Switch has been doing. So,
yeah, it's funny that you say that, because when you're playing Pokemon Yellow and your Pikachu does get poisoned or faints, it's not following you anymore, and there's that weird anxiety of what do I do?
For a kid's game, why are you doing this to me? You're scarring me at a young age.
Yes, yeah. Well, hey, Pokemon. I mean, Pokemon has always been especially going back and revisiting the older games, or as I've gotten older, the story is always way more it's usually about existentialism and our purpose in this world and our contributions to the land and everything. It's Pokemon's way deeper than anyone ever gives it credit for, I think.
True, yeah. Just starts to feel a little bit samey in the gameplay department, and whenever that starts to happen, people just oh man, that's the exact same thing over and over again. But I don't know, I still haven't played stuff like Arceus or anything like that, so I'll leave the story to people like you, people that actually do play it all the time.
Yeah, no, Pokemon games are my comfort food. It's I understand that they're not breaking new ground outside of Legends Arceus, but even that is kind of derivative of what a lot of other games are doing. But it's this, it's warm, it's comfortable. It reminds me of my childhood. So yeah. So, like I said, we're going to have a top-down review discussion of Triangle Strategy, and everything will be time-stamped, so don't worry. And then when we get into the spoilers, there will be a clear, like, all right, we're going into spoilers moment. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for that. And yeah, we'll end on our final thoughts. But before we get into the meat and potatoes, I wanted to ask you, Joe, did you play the game docked or in handheld mode?
So the majority of the time I was actually in docked. I did try it a little bit on handheld, and I'm not gonna lie, even for that art style, it's actually not ideal to play it in handheld at all. Like it actually starts to look very blurry at times. And it's just like, I mean, obviously, whenever it's stretched out on like a giant 50-inch screen TV, it's gonna look blurry regardless. But it was way more noticeable in handheld than it was in docked, which is kind of weird to me. So I just kind of stick to dock and only changed it to handheld for the review to get some notes on it, you know?
Yeah, that's one of the more unfortunate things about playing Switch games on like modern TVs is that that 1080p, I think it's like a deal to play that on like a 23.5-inch screen or something like that, and to stretch it to almost like twice that size is or more does get a little blurry. But that's interesting.
I've been actually interested to get like a 32-inch TV, something that's like a an actual like 720 or 1080p TV, and playing the Switch on it for a little bit just to see if it comes in better because it'll be on like a smaller screen, or if it's just because I'm playing on like a 4K TV. Obviously, it's not doing 4K, but I just want to see like the actual differences.
Yeah. Oh, I will tell you right now, just capturing the gameplay and it showing up in like the preview on OBS, it looks so much better. Not all stretched out. So if you were to buy like a IPS Asus monitor that was like a 23-inch and just played on that, Switch games would look so great. I'm thinking about doing that for when anything that's like maxed out at 1080p, just playing on like a perfect pixel size resolution, or like inch for screen real estate to pixel size, just trying to match that. But anyway, we can get into the top-down review discussion of the game now. So real quick, for anybody that doesn't know, Triangle Strategy is a tactical RPG co-developed by Square Enix and ArtDink, co-published by Square Enix and Nintendo, produced by Tomoya Asano, known for their work on Bravely Default and Octopath Traveler, and Triangle Strategy was released exclusively for Nintendo Switch on March 4th, 2022, the same day as Gran Turismo 7. Which is funny because when it came out, I was like, you know what, I'm going to get Gran Turismo 7. And in my review, I mentioned that as things kept going along and Breath of the Wild got kicked out of 2022, I looked at Triangle Strategy as, man, this might be the biggest game for Nintendo Switch this year. I better circle back to it. And I'm so glad that I did. What were your thoughts on the story aspects of the game?
Oh man, that story, it was gigantic. Like, I played on easy, so I'm just getting that out of the way real quick, just to make sure people don't know don't think I'm like hardcore or anything like that.
Okay, and I played on normal.
Okay, well at least you challenged yourself a little bit more. I did play some on normal, so I did get my butt whooped a couple of times. But this is the first game that I've played that's ever been like 20 to 30 hours on like a normal story spectrum, and I never felt the time playing it. The story was so engrossing, the writing was wonderful, I loved every single character, every single different cutscene was amazing. I love how they allowed you to put yourself into like an autoplay sort of thing, so you can actually just like press the I think it's like the right trigger on your on the Joy-Cons. You can actually just like sit back and just enjoy the story like that, just watch it all unfold, and it was amazing. It was dark, it was gritty, it had some wonderful moments, awesome action sequences and everything like that, and the endings as well. Like I don't think we're not going to get into them right now, of course, but the multiple endings that it did have, some of them are happy, some of them are melancholy, and some of them are just outright dark. So
no, this is my first time playing a tactics RPG, and so I
played Gears Tactics on Xbox, but that's like an XCOM kind of thing, not like a tactical turn-based JRPG. So
yes,
it's kind of my first time too.
Yeah. it's funny because I think, you know, I don't know what it is, why I've resisted it for so long, but I'm finding, I don't know if it's because it's like new stuff, but everything that, like, last year Metroid Dread came out of nowhere and surprised me, and it was my first Metroid game that I played to completion and I loved it, but like I've never finished like a Metroidvania style game before, and now this was my first like tactics RPG, and you know, I thought surface level, you know, judging a book by its cover, the story was going to be similar to like a Pokemon. It may dabble into some darker areas, but I thought I never expected it to go as deep and the story to have as much weight as I felt that it had. You know, I mean, sometimes I would be, there are moments in the game where you have to make some pretty harsh decisions, and I was like conflicted, like
exactly
trying to decide like, okay, what is going to happen if I choose X over Y, or, you know, and even later in the game where the choices aren't even black and white. It's not one or the other. There's 3 options, or you're splitting up the party and sending them off to do different things. And I don't know, like the story in terms of Serenoa, and yeah, you know, I don't want to get into spoilers yet, but I think he's a great leading character, in that he kind of has like a Ashitaka from Princess Mononoke vibe, where he's kind of the bridge between these different like almost like feuding nations, and gets to kind of play that middle ground. But I think that's a really hard position to play, because you're trying to do the right thing and also kind of look out for yourself and push what's best for everybody forward. But to do so, you have to like play nice with people that you might not want to achieve that end goal. So I think this game like successfully nailed that, and it was really, really compelling. And like you said, just hitting right trigger and just sitting back and just watching everything kind of play out. You almost forget that it's just, you know, pixel art and little sprites and stuff. It was really cool.
Yeah, it feels like a modern game, just using the pixel art style to tell its like little compelling story, and it shocks you in that degree. Like, you don't, whenever you're looking at it, you don't really expect much from it, but then there's just these things that happen over the course of the story, and you're like, wow, they're actually going this far with certain aspects. And you touched on the choices. Like, I really loved how, for like, whenever you're choosing the story missions, there's like these additional like little side stories that you can watch. So you can always see more and more of each character that you're going to have to make choices that involve them specifically. So you actually get to learn more about them, their motivations. So you can see like, okay, do I really want to side with this person, or do I want to go against them? And it was really smart to do it like that, because it just reminds me of like the old like Dragon Age and Mass Effect games, where it's like whenever you make a choice, everything's so impactful. So it's like I'm learning more about these people, and I get to make a choice that actually affects them. You're putting the power in my hands, and it's awesome, while also giving me an amazing story on top of it.
Yeah, the way that you do get those, because the side stories, like right before you make a big decision, and you get to kind of go and get a sense for what may happen if you choose to go down certain paths. I was amazed at how this game everything would feel like, and it, not to say that it like robbed the weight of the decisions, but sometimes I'd be like, all right, I know that this is the right thing, or this is what feels like the right thing for me to do, but I know that by doing this, I'm going to shortchange somebody, and somebody's not going to be happy with this decision. Yep. But after you do it, you're like, all right, well, this could blow up in my face, or it could work out for the best. It always kind of, in the end, played out okay, except for like one time, which we'll talk about when we get to spoilers, but I never expected to get a game over mid
Oh yeah,
game.
that part. I was shocked whenever that happened too. I was like,
Yeah.
no way, no way. This is awesome.
Yeah. Oh, it's so cool. Man. In terms of the gameplay, you know, both being our first like JRPG tactics game, you know, I come from like my games are like 3D platformers and the classic, like at this point, like third person over the shoulder adventure, like action adventure games of like God of War and The Last of Us and everything. It Ghost of Tsushima. That's kind of like my bread and butter. But how did you feel? Like, what is typically your game that you enjoy playing, and then how did you find this compared to that?
I kind of like first-person shooters, if anything. So going from like a high-octane, you know, kind of shooter like a Titanfall 2, a Halo, or even a game like Warframe, which is a third-person shooter. It's a much different change of pace, and I feel like the gameplay was just as engaging, if not more, because of the fact that, as I called it in the review, it's more like chess, not checkers. Like, you always have to plan a couple of steps ahead, and in some shooters, you actually have to think like that too. Like, if I pick up this gun, I got to think about what I'm missing if I'm not, you know, picking up something else. So,
Yeah, you know, when I started playing and like the first fight that like I really got into took like 45 minutes. I was like, okay, like if this is like the beginning of the game, what are some of these battles going to be like in the late game? But you know, you get better and you learn that you can fast forward through some of the turns, and that takes up some of the time. And I would like to know, you know, the first couple of fights I didn't know about fast forward, and then in the later game, some of the fights were taking even longer than the first fight, but I was using fast forward. So if I wasn't, how long would those fights have taken? I have no idea. But I found that I was completely locked in to these battles that I never would have thought. I thought I would get bored playing it. Like, you know, oh man, I just gotta slowly pick off these people and play through. But I was arguably more locked in than I was playing like Horizon Zero or Forbidden West earlier this year, like in the minute to minute gameplay moments. And you know, I know that those games are real fast and frenetic, and like kind of keeping you locked in is almost kind of what they're going for from a gameplay perspective. But I oddly feel like Triangle Strategy had me more locked in than anything else I've played this year. It was really surprising.
yeah, I think it comes down to the challenge, so to speak. Like with every combat encounter, like it's not just like, okay, I'm just gonna kill a couple bandits and I'll be through. Like you said, it's like an hour-long chess match, and it's very, very unforgiving. One wrong move that you make can cost you a lot. Like, even on easy, there was one battle around the middle of the game where I was left with basically just one person left. And whenever I'm playing like a first-person shooter, it's like, okay, yeah, I ran out of, you know, this much ammo, so I'm just gonna walk back, get something new, and then yeah. It's with modern games like Horizon Forbidden West, like a Halo, like a Titanfall 2, they always give you the opportunity to rectify your mistakes while you're making them. With Triangle Strategy, like I said, like a chess match, one wrong move and you're screwed over for something that you actually need. Like, if I lost Serenoa in the middle of a match, like, he is a very heavy-hitting standard knight character, and he's actually very useful in that regard. If I lost him and I was left with, just say like an archer and maybe like a tank, like, yeah, the tank could take a lot of damage, but at the same time wouldn't have somebody else to defend the archer, basically. It's way more engaging in that regard because it's just so challenging, so unforgiving. I just... I just couldn't get enough of it. And even on easy, like there was moments in the New Game Plus, like during like one segment where I was just like retrying this exact same combat encounter over and over again because of how much I was messing up, and realizing that, okay, I gotta do this instead of this. Okay.
Yeah. There's a, like, losing Serenoa, like, I had this weird connection to him where I wanted him to make it to the end of every battle, but sometimes it's just not going to play out that way. And I found that, like, one, I really like that you didn't, like, if a character died, they weren't gone forever. I enjoyed that. Or in terms of, like, in battle, they weren't gone forever. Yeah. And if mistakes were made, and trust me, I made so many mistakes. Like,
same here. You're not alone.
Yeah, just like simple things of realizing that I forgot to turn my character for their back to face a wall, which just opened them up to get critical hit, and then they were pretty much donezo after that. Like, you really do pay for every mistake that you make, and but I loved that your experience carries over, because it made the, like, a 45-minute battle where you end, or you lose at the very end, when you were, like, just about to win. I never, like, oddly enough, like, never felt like I lost out on my progress, and I think that that's because I know that at least next time it's going to be a little easier because I earned all that experience, and now I have a better strategy.
I gotcha. Same here. Like, same with items too. And it's just like, okay, so this item didn't help me during this part, so I'm just not going to use it next time. It's not like, oh, okay, I use this, healing pellet, so it's gone forever. Like, no, like, they do, like, it is unforgiving whatever you're playing it, but at the same time, with each combat encounter, even if you fail, the fact that it at least lets you keep your XP, lets you keep your items, so you can think, but like I said, have a better strategy. It's kind of like them saying, okay, here's what you did, but here's what you could have done better.
Yes.
Because you learn after the fact.
Yeah. And there are some battles where I either, like, botched my unit placement, or maybe, like, halfway through the fight, I realized there are areas that were super advantageous for me to be in, that I was like, oh, if I just get there with these certain units, then I'll have this dominant layout that I can just and I'll save it, like, that particular battle for later, because I want to pick your brain about some of the bigger fights in the game. But I didn't play Octopath Traveler, and I haven't played Bravely Default, but so this is really my first time playing, like, a HD 2D, or like this art style that they kind of have. I mean, I think it starts in, like, Bravely Default in terms of, like, the character designs, like the hand-drawn artwork, and then
the games like Bravely Default and Bravely Default 2, those are actually they're kind of like they're 3D on a 2D plane, while Octopath Traveler is 2D on a 3D plane. So Octopath Traveler is a pixel art 2D on a 3D environment, and Bravely Default is like 3D on a 2D like layout, basically. So it's a little bit different in that regard. But
okay,
like basically Triangle Strategy and Octopath Traveler are, like, the closest to one another.
Got it.
And
okay,
it's not just like it's not just because, like, the pixel art style. It's just the way that they. It's just the way that they made everything. It's just kind of a little similar. It's a little similar, but not too similar.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so just how did you, like, because I think we're probably coming from jumping into a game like this from, a first-person shooter, or like a big, like, I thought Horizon Forbidden West is a beautiful game, and some of the ways that game, like, the impact that you make in that world and the way it changes certain environments. I don't want to spoil anything for Horizon Forbidden West, but to me, I find it so odd that a game that I think a lot of people would look at as being like a retro experience in triangle strategy I was surprised by how like kind of like I was like blown away by how good it looked. And you know, maybe that's that HD 2D thing that is starting to with Octopath Traveler and is carrying forward, and we're going to see it again in Live Alive later this year. How do you feel about that art style?
I feel like there's a lot of potential, like you said, with Live Alive. Like, I've seen just the regular trailer that they did for that game, and what they're doing with some of the stuff, like it's like this giant guy that's just kind of like standing in the center, and then there's just like 2D sprites like circling around him. Like, that's really creative, and they're showing like different ways of doing stuff with that art style. Like, was it like a ninja running across like a side-scrolling rooftop and everything like that. And then there's also the Dragon Quest III remake that's also using that exact same style. And I've looked at all of them, like they're doing different things with it, but it's still kind of keeping that exact same, using that exact same style. And it looks wonderful. Like every time that I see it, like in Octopath Traveler, like the way that the environments have like that 3D light, the water effects. Like it's weird to talk about water in video games, but it means a lot whenever you're just looking at an environment. Like you're seeing like a waterfall just like draining over draining over rocks, and it's wonderful to see. Like with this art style, they did that with it. It's impressive, you know?
Yeah. There's that scene where you pull up on a boat, you chase after a certain character, and when you pull up and the water's rushing by and the waves are going, and they shoot that like harpoon to go over, like to use as a zip line. I used it twice in my video just because it looks so good. Like I used it in the intro. Yeah. Oh, I mean, with content creation, and I'm sure you understand this from writing and everything. You kind of have to move project to project, and you hardly ever really get to go back and replay something. But Triangle Strategy is a game where, especially in terms of like the story and the gameplay and how it branches and goes off into these other areas, like I don't want to get into too much spoilers, but like I didn't get to see that much of S-Frost, and I want to replay it just to see what S-Frost looks like, because I feel like I spent so much time in Hyzant, and but Hyzant was still like awesome and beautiful, and the like purple room that you go in to talk with the Saintly Seven is just like,
oh yeah, that room. I loved that. I loved like the entire design for God, what is it? Don't want to give it away, but it's the it's the one where they're kind of collecting stuff. Hint hint. That little you know what I'm talking about. Like the way that they designed all that and had like all the bridges along the side of it, and then whenever you're on the overview map, like right afterwards, you actually get to see like how small that area is on a map, but whenever you're playing in it, it feels so big. It feels so lived in. It's a way of capturing like the scenery while you're playing it, but also making you appreciate even more whenever you're not in it. It's awesome.
Yeah,
sorry. I was just gonna say, okay. With S-Frost, like actually, like that's the advantage of like the New Game Plus in this. Like, you know, I went to Hyzant as much as you did, I think, on the first playthrough, but it's like, you know, I really want to see S-Frost, and the way that they did S-Frost 2, it is gorgeous, and I actually love being in there a little bit more than I did in Hyzant. Actually, it's kind of weird.
Oh wow, okay. That's exciting. I'm like, when can I find time to go back? For me, in terms of visuals, the moment there was like a not like an aha moment, but a moment where I realized this game was gonna play on a level that I wasn't anticipating. Was, you know, it's in one of the exploration segments, and I'm making my way through, and I accidentally bumped the right stick and realized the camera would shift in those moments.
Oh yeah.
And after I shifted that perspective, there were other like blinking like items for me to collect, or ladders that I didn't realize that I could use to go down to lower levels and explore down there, and everything kind of opened up, and I didn't see that coming at all. And I forgot that yeah, it's HD 2D. I can rotate the camera and look around, and these areas are, I think even though the exploration segments where I notice more of the performance issues that were like fluctuating frame rates, but nothing game breaking or anything that
Serenoa's little legs are sprinting around,
Yeah. Yeah. It almost reminded me of what was it, Goku's Legacy on GBA?
I don't think I played that. No.
I think that's what the game is called. No, it's okay, but it's the way that the like 16-bit like sprites moved around in these spaces. It just reminded me of that. But yeah, in terms of, there are the 3 sections to the gameplay that I think, there's the stories and how the story can progress and branch off, and you get to access different areas. And I think the decisions that you make with your party using the scales of conviction was a really interesting gameplay mechanic. And just top down, I wanted to kind of pick your brain about it. How did you feel? I haven't played Mass Effect, so I know you can shame me in the comments, guys, but
that's fine.
In terms of games where you make choices and that changes the story, for me personally, it's more like Until Dawn or like a Heavy Rain or something to that effect. How did you feel Triangle Strategy stacks up in terms of the scales of conviction mechanic and the way the story progresses compared to other games that do similar things?
Well, like I said, whenever it came to Dragon Age and Mass Effect, there would usually be, like a good, a neutral, and like an evil option. Like they'd give you kind of like a 3 range system, just like the Scales of Conviction kind of is in that regard. And the same thing with like the dialogue options. We'll get to that later, I guess. So in the way, I felt like it was kind of like replicating that, but at the same time, it felt a little different because in certain scenes like Mass Effect, like if you choose like an evil option, you just dispatch somebody, or if you do like a good option, you go to, you try to find like a different way around it. Like it's more or less like you're shaping how you want the story to play out, similar to Triangle Strategy. So it's kind of similar in that regard. And the way that they did like the voting system for like how the key characters in the game would have their own little token. Sereno would basically, you could basically go around and entice people to do your own, do the thing that you wanted to do, even if they're, a little, but like they're hooked onto one path that they want to go down. And it's awesome to see that, because it's like, okay, maybe I do want to see what this option would do instead of this option. So it was a really good system. Like I really loved it. And like in the like I keep talking about New Game Plus, but that's whenever it kind of opens up, because it kind of shows you like what is it, like at one point, like there's like 3 branching options to go down, but they all go down. There's always going to be like certain key events that always play out, and I thought that was a little disappointing. Like certain dialogue would change, obviously, but like certain scenes would always play out kind of similar-ish, but you would always get to see like a different side before getting to that thing, and then that always enticed me to go right back to New Game Plus and see like, okay, maybe I do want to go to Azeroth and see, what's going on over there, why certain things happen in the story because of,
Yeah, I like that the exploration segments allow you to kind of gather information that you can use to better persuade party members. And, I would try my hardest to persuade, say, like Frederica to, do something that goes against what she really wants to do, which I always felt pretty bad about doing, because right. I feel like what she wants to do is mostly justified, and I totally understand where she's coming from, and I feel like I tended to kind of side with her more times than not. But if I had something I really wanted to do and I wasn't able to persuade them, personally, I just kind of went, all right, I wasn't able to persuade them, I'm going to see where this goes. And I was surprised at how much like I wasn't bothered by having to do something I didn't necessarily want to do. As soon as we got going, I realized like, oh, this is still going to be fun and compelling, and maybe I see the merits in going down this path. It seems like they Square Enix and Art Inc. really put some thought into, even if no matter what path somebody takes, it's got to be interesting, and it has to have the nuance that makes the player realize the merit and the path you're going down, whether or not you agree with what it was predicated on, which I think is like a tremendous feat to accomplish.
Yeah, like I mean, like you mentioned, like with like the exploration segments, like it actually took me forever to figure out. Like whenever I'm talking to people, you know, you like you said, like whenever we talk to people, you get information to persuade people. Like I didn't actually know that's actually what that was specifically for. Like whenever, because some of the early decisions in the game, like they're not as impactful. So whenever you're going around and talking to people, you don't really get that gist. You're just basically breaking into people's houses and taking stuff that they just leave, you know, in their house. I mean, it's glowing, it's shiny. I kind of want it, you know, an extra iron ore or something. That's pretty nice. But like it wasn't until like a scene in Hyzant that I actually understood, like, okay, I actually have to go around and talk to people and talk to this person before they let me talk to this person, or go into this house and, you know, collect this specific thing to really see how the story is going to progress properly. Like it affects the story. It's not just like a different it's not like a different persuasion, or like a like I said, like, you know, failing to progress in one specific area in the game. Like you actually have to, they actually make you engage in this system, and it's actually kind of nice because you remember this for like another playthrough. It's like, okay, let me talk to everybody and get through, and that's something that I haven't actually seen. Like, yeah, like I said, with like these side stories, you can go around and listen to people's motivations and be like, okay, I should side with this person or not side with them. But it's different to engage with just like simple NPCs and actually learn something to use that's actually impactful for the story itself. It's creative, and I've never actually seen that before.
Same. Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like the, you know, you think of a game like The Last of Us, which I'm not going to spoil for anybody, but it has its story to tell, and regardless of how you feel, it's going to make you, like, you have to do it. If you don't, the story doesn't go anywhere. And I think that has its own merit, which I enjoy. I enjoy if somebody has a story to tell that story, and I'm along for the ride, and I've signed up for this. You know, I ponied up my $60. But in terms of giving you these choices and letting you attempt to persuade people, and if to successfully persuade somebody always felt really good. When you tried and failed, it hurt a little bit. It had a sting to it. Or just in a conversation when you would like throw something out there and somebody was kind of like, I think that's a bit silly. That always kind of felt like, God. But I personally tried not to manipulate it too much. Like I didn't save before I did a Scales of Conviction, so that if I messed something up, I could go back and try again. I just was like, I've explored this area thoroughly. I think I have all the information. I'm going to take my best stab at it, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, like with the dialogue options, like you said, like whenever you're persuading people, it doesn't actually say like, oh, this is the most effective or this is the least effective. Like you actually have to think about it. You actually have to like look at it and be like, okay, does this actually sound like it's compelling to my argument, or is this playing to their argument or to somebody else's argument that they're going to disagree with? And I actually love that I actually had to pay attention to the dialogue itself. Like I couldn't just pick. It's like in Mass Effect, like I said, like whenever it comes to the evil or the good options, it's always like a blue or a red option with like a little gray in the middle, basically. But to basically tell you like, okay, this is what path you're going to go down. But in triangle strategy, like you actually have to pay attention and be like, okay, I actually have to think like, is this is this going to work for my first part of the argument? And then sometimes they would talk back to you and be like, okay, like I see where you're going with this, but like, is there anything more to your argument before we stop talking? And they had you do that again, and it's just loved it. I never thought talking to an NPC would be that engaging.
Yeah. It's why, like, I think what they've done with Triangle Strategy is so special, because they found a way to not only connect the story with the gameplay in like a surface level kind of way. They went super deep and created moments that I actually, like, I know they call it the scales of conviction, but it felt like it was challenging me in my own like morals. Like, I was like wondering like what actually means more to me, freedom, liberty, or utility, you know?
Yeah.
And it's a really special game in that regard. In terms of the soundtrack, I think this, you know, it's not something that I'm gonna like, you know, it's not like a Hotline Miami where like I might play it in the car or anything, but in terms of playing the game, it had this like I said in my review, you could close your eyes and you know where you are and you know who you're focusing on based on the music. What were your big takeaways from the voice acting and the audio and all that?
Okay, so starting with the soundtrack first, like whenever you said like, you know, you're not really gonna listen to it, like, you know, you're see it like, what is it, Hotline Miami, like going down the road, like, I don't do that specifically, but I do actually sometimes while I'm working and doing like a, you know, mundane task at work, I actually just put on like one of the like extended versions of like some of the combat themes, like one that specifically plays during okay, so you talked about the ship, so I know exactly which option you chose. Whenever you're on the bridge and you're fighting the Frederica's siblings, like that's like halfway through the battle, like it changes to like this was like guitar and orchestra kind of like, you know, mixed together kind of thing, and it's intense, it's amazing. I actually loved like even in like some of the like what is it, the cave area, like there's like this one little, it's like a very somber tune, and then whenever you're doing like the combat thing, it starts changing to a much more intense thing, and it's like they ramp up the music, they create like this special little feel and vibe to it, and it executes perfectly because of the context of the story and who is it being played specifically for. Like, you can actually tell like this being played for Frederica or for Roland or for blanking on some of the names, I'm sorry, but like they did a lot of work with just the soundtrack alone that it makes every single scene more powerful. For the voice acting though, it was good. I didn't think it was fantastic though. I'm not going to insult any of the voice actors. Like, I can't imagine what it was like to voice act during a pandemic, like what kind of setup they have to do in their own house, because they couldn't go out to a studio or even fly at one point. But some of the voice acting, specifically characters like Gila, for instance, Frederica's I think it's her tutor, she always sounded low to me, like very, very low. Like, she was like mumbling a little bit like this, you know, like it felt like she was just not near her microphone, or she was just speaking very softly. And like, she delivered her lines well, but it felt like they could have been like, hey, could you speak up a little bit more and just redo this line, you know, just give a little bit more into it. And well, somebody like Cordelia, for instance, I'm not going to insult that person specifically because I don't like you know who I'm talking about. It's just the way that she sounded. I could tell it was a female's voice, but the way that she was performing, it made her sound like it was a guy doing their best female like voice impression. Like, again, I don't want to sound insulting, but it was just kind of like, it was off-putting listening to that person. Like, to the point where I actually did want to fast forward, but I couldn't, because I did kind of want to see what some of these interactions were with her, and I think she's a wonderful character. Like, she really is. It's just the voice acting kind of fails her a little bit. And then there's awesome voice actors like Dragan, who at one point gets drunk, and I swear you could hear the sheer happiness of that man drinking while he's voice acting, because he actually does, like, I would be shocked if he was actually sober doing those lines.
He sounded wasted.
Yeah, he perfectly emulated. Yeah. It was amazing.
He was deliciously drunk. Like, he was having a great time, was sauced up. And in terms of Cordelia, I know exactly what you mean. It was very anime, and it had that feeling of, like, when you're in your car and you're listening to maybe like a guilty pleasure and you've got the windows down and you pull up to a stoplight and you're like, maybe I turn this one down until we get moving again.
Or just roll up the windows, just whatever. Just make sure nobody looks at me like, what are you even listening to, dude?
Yes, yeah. I had a couple of moments where she would be talking or just emoting, like expressing like anguish in a moment, and I was like, man, I hope no one else in the house here's this. Here's this, yeah. So yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, and I highlighted it in my review. Like, I was like, I'm not going to knock the game for the quality of the recordings of the voice acting, because I think it was, people were probably recording in their closet, and then sometimes being like, I'm going to record, I don't have time to set up in my closet, I'm just going to record at my desk, and you could hear the room around it, or maybe they changed mics or something happened, or for all I know, it could be a mixing issue. Like, some lines may have been punched in at the last minute and they didn't mix them properly, because I noticed in one conversation Roland was talking, it went over to somebody else and came back to Roland, and it sounded like he was back here talking instead of right here on the mic.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know if they punched in that line after the fact, or maybe they were like, hey, you're going to have to re-record that. And he was like, I don't have the same mic. I'm not. And they were like, just do whatever you've got, use your iPhone microphone, just put it close to you or something, and we'll figure it out.
Like I said, it was good. It was never, like, none of the voice acting was, especially bad. Like, none of it made me be like, okay, I'm just going to switch to the Japanese voice acting because I know that they're going to be better. Because I usually do that in, like, most of the JRPGs I played. I did that for Dragon Quest XI. I didn't do that for Yakuza Like a Dragon. I did that for Octopath Traveler. I do that for, like, a lot of JRPGs, because it just feels like the English voice actors just aren't giving it their all. But there's just something about Triangle Strategy's English voice acting that just kind of worked, to the point where, even with some of the faults, like, Cordelia and Gila just being a little bit low in that regard, everything like Dragan, Sarah Noah, Roland, Benedict, everybody like that, like, their voice acting made me want to keep listening, even if, I kind of hated some of the voice acting. I wanted to just keep listening to their performances, because they just killed it. Like, it was wonderful. And I never wanted to change back.
Yeah.
Benedict
in particular has that very measured, matter of fact kind of like
very gravelly and authoritative. I loved him.
Yes, I don't want to get into it right now because I don't want to spoil anything. But before we move on to spoilers, I think we should probably just highlight that in terms of anybody that's listening to this that hasn't played the game, the performance that, there are some frame rate fluctuations, but outside of that, I didn't experience anything game breaking, never lost a save. I think one time I was running late for work and I had to just quit out of the game and rely on my autosave, and it worked. It even gave me a little bit of a recap, not exactly, but it went back maybe to a conversation that I was in the middle of, that when I backed out, it started me at the beginning, so I got to kind of catch back up and go, okay, yeah, that's what was going on. All right, we're off to the races.
Could you not just press the home button on the Joy-Con and just kind of go to the power down, because they do kind of it does kind of it does suspend the game if you go from if it just press the home button and goes to the main menu of your Switch, like it should just like suspend it. So I don't know, like did you have to free up the Switch for somebody else, or was it just kind of?
No, I was going to work because I had this idea of like, oh, I could maybe squeeze in a little bit of triangle strategy before work, and I got caught up in like a 45-minute fight that I won, and then it immediately went into story and didn't go out to the world map for me to save. And so I was like trying to get through it, and I didn't want the game clock to keep running. I didn't know if it would or not, but I was like, I beat the game in about 36 hours, a little over that. And I know a lot of that was like, I took like 20 pages of notes while playing this game. And so a lot of times, like I have this collapsible table that I'll like fold out and sit in front of my TV, and I just pull my chair up to it, and I have like a cup of coffee, my notes, my phone's there, and I just play. And anytime I think of something or something cool happens, because I'm doing the video, so I give myself timestamps so that when I need to refer back to something later, I can jot that down. And that takes up enough time where I go, okay, maybe like 2 hours of this playtime was me taking notes in the midst of everything. And so I didn't want to skew my my game time.
I gotcha. I didn't think I was going to divulge from the performance thing. But on my end though, like aside from like how I joked about Serenoa's little pixel art legs like sprinting across like an entire field in like a couple seconds, that it looked a little goofy to me, but it was just like, it's fine, it serves the gameplay, whatever. I did notice some frame rate fluctuations, like whenever you go into a battle, like whenever it says like the battle begins thing, like that never looked right to me at all. Like it never did. Like it wasn't like choppy, it wasn't like freezing or anything like that, but it just felt recorded at a very low frame rate in accordance to everything else. It just looked a little off to me. But during one section there's just stuff that involves fire, and I noticed like whenever I did something specific, whatever the fire was on the screen or whatever, it tanked the frame rate to like 1 or 2 frames a second. Like it got that bad to the point where I had to like just set my Joy-Cons on the table. I had to just let it burn, like I had to just let it like die out before I continued playing, because it just got that bad. Like I couldn't turn away from it either. Like it was on the screen for that long, and it was just like, man, that's just
wow.
But that was like the only time that I ever like truly noticed like an actual like frame rate problem that would affect playing the game. Like that's the only time I've ever actually had to like put the thing down and just let it play out. It just.
And is that like when you were using like a move of like Frederica's, like using Scorch or something?
No. It's kind of spoilerish, but there's this one thing whenever you have to start like we have to like the game will enable you to start a fire on like a house, basically. Like that's all I'm gonna leave it at because I don't want to spoil it.
Okay.
Because it's yeah.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like if you know what I'm talking about, then yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like it's
okay. Yeah.
Whenever that stuff happens, it is so bad. Like, like whenever I said like I couldn't turn away, it's like even whenever I turned the camera away to where it wasn't on the screen anymore, it was just affecting the game itself to the point where it was still, being that bad in a frame rate. Like I literally just had to, pan it back and then just watch it burn.
Yeah.
It was awful.
Yeah.
That was the only one though.
Yeah. Okay. I tweeted today about how, we all look at those NVIDIA leaks and go, wow, almost everything that's come out of these NVIDIA leaks has been true in time. And the Switch Pro was mentioned in the NVIDIA leaks.
I hope so.
Yeah, and I hope that a game like Triangle Strategy, you could just pop the card in and it'll play, and the victory animation or a battle begins.
Actually be smooth for once. Well, yes, yeah. Please.
Because, it did feel like it was an overlay over top of what was happening. So it was rendering that, and then this overlay was coming up that had to play out, and the system was having a hard time handling both at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I doubt that they put in like a 24 frames per second animation. I'm sure it was meant to be 30.
I hope not.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Yeah. But
I don't know.
think
Some of Square's decisions lately are kind of leaving me a little highbrow. Like, excuse me.
yeah. But with that, I think we can go ahead and dive into the spoiler section of our conversation. So anybody that's trying to avoid spoilers will see you when you go beat the game and come back. Hopefully you will. But yeah, we are officially moving into spoilers. Before we do that, is there anything you wanted to end on in terms of review discussion?
Not really. Like, whenever it comes down to it, like the game is very good. Like, if you can find it at Walmart for $50, definitely pick it up. Even if it's like 60, just give it a plunge. Like, I didn't want to do this, but at the same time, I purchased this for a questionable amount of money on eBay. Like, this is the collector's edition, so
oh, cool.
I won't get into that. But it's like the game is that good where I'm willing to go out of my way to find somebody that's definitely looking for a payday and getting like an extra copy of the game. Like, I don't mind it.
Yeah.
Like, it was worth that much money to me. Like, to the standard viewer, like, definitely $50. Even if it's like 60, just definitely give it a shot. It's worth it. And it does have a demo as well. Like, you can try the first 3 chapters of the game, and it will give you a few combat scenarios. It won't give you a lot of the experience, but it'll give you just enough, you know?
Yeah. And your save carries over.
Exactly.
And it's funny because I played the demo and walked away from it like, okay, I see what's going on. And I just like tabled it, but then returned to it. And like I said, I'm so glad that I did. I mean, I think, I've got my copy right here. I'm proud to own this.
Oh, yeah. It's got such a weird name, but it's such a good game, though.
Yeah. It is a hard 5 out of 5, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Despite the performance stuff, there's oodles of replayability in it. The story is great. Gameplay is so enticing and compelling and engaging. I would take it from me, somebody that hasn't played a tactics game like this outside of briefly dabbling in Path of Radiance when I was a child and it being too difficult for me and not finishing it. This game completely caught me off guard, and I would suggest anyone play it. But now we are properly going to transition into spoilers. So in terms of the story, I figure we can start there. I think, I don't even know where to start exactly outside of what do you like. There's the first section of the game where you build up. I think the first like hard decision you have to make is in chapter 3, where you either go to Hyzant or Esfrost. And I'm guessing based on our conversation earlier, you went to Hyzant.
Yeah, so for the first playthrough, I went to Hyzant, and that's because I did want to see, like, because I noticed with the dialogue it said something about how Frederica's kind, the Roselle, they were basically being oppressed by them, so I was like, okay, I kind of want to see what this is about. Like, obviously they didn't show that stuff until later, but I still got a decent gathering from basically exploring that small little pocket of the town, going into the what would you call it, a lab or something like that. I can't remember exactly what they called it.
Where they were doing the research.
Yeah,
the ministry.
Like, whenever you go into the ministry, like, I got just enough info to know, like, okay, these people are very sketchy, and I was glad to know that ahead of time, because as the game goes forward, Hyzant seems like a side faction at the very beginning of the game, but they're not. Like, they are a very, very powerful, very intimidating force that whenever the war breaks out, they start to slowly start to get their tendrils into Norzelia a little bit more and more and more, because they have that much power due to their salt. Like, it was awesome. It was actually great to see, because it was just like, if they show me all of this stuff, if they build up this much excitement for this faction of the world, and they barely do anything with it, I was going to be very disappointed, and they didn't. And I was so happy to see everything that they did with it. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But and then with the second playthrough, like, have you gone to Aspros yet?
I have not. No.
Okay, so I'll try to keep it as spoiler free for you. Spoilercast, I gotta keep it a little spoilery.
At this point, you can do it. I'm interested to know what happens if I go that way.
Okay, so in Aspros, like, it really shows like a very, what would I call it? It's a very down on its luck nation. Like, whenever you hear all of, like, the little stuff about Aspros playing the game, like, they always paint it as like this very strong, force to be reckoned with. But whenever you're in the town, there are people who are committing literal crimes and actually killing people just for salt. It's that bad. Like obviously that's because of Hyzan and how much they charge, and their whole taxation thing. But it was very good to just like have that little peek behind the curtain and talk a little bit to Gustadolf. I think Thalos and Erica weren't. I don't think they were in that section, but whenever you go to one or the other, like, you always get like a specific character, and I feel like the one that you get in Aspros is more useful than the person you get in Hyzant. It's just because in the harder section of the game, you actually start to appreciate just how far an archer can shoot, and they could stay away from like all the enemy attacks and still take like one shot at somebody in the beginning. Like, it's very useful in that degree. And I just look, but in terms of story though, seeing both of those, I would say Aspros was a much better decision to make instead of Hyzant, even though if you understand Hyzant a little bit better, you can understand that, these people are going to stab me in the back first chance they get.
Yeah. Which
I guess both did, so.
Yeah. So yes, if you go to Hyzant, at that split, there's two different characters that can join your party. If you go to Hyzant, it's Corentin Jenner. He's studying in the ministry, and it's kind of like somebody that like isn't necessarily cast out, but like wants to join the party and leave, and he doesn't like the teachings anymore and wants to learn more and feels very limited. And then Rudolf Mueller is the archer that joins your party in Aspros. And I didn't get to play him at all, but I loved the archers. Like Huet and Archibald are... I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but the battle on the bridge, where there's those two perches, that if you get your archers to the top, basically what I did is I put Huet and Archibald up there, and then used Anna, who is a god tier character, just being able to like get behind somebody, stab them, and then take cover and be invisible. And
I got a funny story for that later too.
Okay. So I think there's the weird duality at that point where you're making that choice to go to Hyzant, so that Serenoa is engaged to Frederica Aspros, and she is of Rosellan descent, has the pink hair, and Rosellans are disparaged in this nation and enslaved in Hyzant. And Lord Simon, who is Lord Serenoa's father, helped take in a bunch of refugees, Rosellan refugees, and they have their own village inside Glenbrook, where they can live freely, and they're kind of living in secret there, even though I feel like most people know they're there, but they're under the protection of Glenbrook, and if you were to attack them, it would probably spring out a whole new war. But Frederica has been living in Aspros because her mother escaped Hyzant and went and spent time and ended up getting pretty. I mean, she wrote books, and she talk about a fascinating character that you never get to see. What's her name? Orlea? I forget.
I think it's Orlea. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they could do a whole side story, like a prequel of all of that, and I would day one buy that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, you go to Hyzant so that you can basically, so Frederica can learn more about her people. And I forget what the reason is for going to Esfrost, outside of maybe because they're kind of on the attack at that point.
So I think this was before like the war broke out in this story. So I think it was more or less so Serenoa could actually, see Gustadolf and actually get to know him. Like, I don't think Gustadolf ever, like, what was it? There was like this festival going on or something like that, like the second chapter. I don't think he actually personally went to that, so I think it was just like an information gather to see Esfrost, meet Lord Gustadolf, which we'll talk about later. Like he's one of my favorite characters. I love him. And for Hyzant, like it's to kind of learn like where the oppression came from for the Rosellan, and in a smart way of writing it, like they actually did kind of show without Serenoa and Frederica realizing it, because during that before they left Hyzant to go into chapter 4, they actually said like we're no closer to understanding why Hyzant was so brutal to my people, even though the stuff that you see in that town is exactly what kind of happened. Like, it's an opposition of ideology that makes that entire city turn on you and either kill you or enslave you. Like, it's a very brutal thing, and I won't say that they were oblivious, but they wanted to see something that was specifically, catered towards Rosellan. But I loved how they just... It was a clever bit of foreshadowing, and I loved it.
Yeah, and them touting equality as this thing where everybody but the Roselle is living a great life under the goddess of Hyzant.
You have freedom, you get taken care of, but you just can't say this, or this. And
yeah,
it reminds me of today's world, but hey, we're not going to get into that.
Yeah, we don't have to dive too much into it, but I think that's one thing that this game, I think, really does well is, it's like art imitates life, or is it vice versa? I don't know. But the thought put into the nuance of all of these decisions and going down these pathways, and because eventually, depending on the choices you make, you either this about Hyzant, that because they are threatened by the goddess's actual teachings, they've altered them, or at least communicating them in a way that makes the salt that they have seem so unique and precious to them. And just the act of the Roselle knowing that salt is all over the earth. It's not just in this, they show it like a body of water, which makes me think that like all of the world's water in terms of like the oceans has shrunk to just this portion of the world. And then the salt is like in the Himalayas, like the like rock salt that's like out in the world spread throughout. That's kind of what I feel like they were going for, is like the water had shrunk and they were using some kind of science to like desalination to get the salt out of the water, and that's what the Roselle were tasked with doing.
Yeah. Which ending did you get for your playthrough, if I can ask?
Yeah, no, totally. So I ended up teaming up with Esfrost and attacking the Roselle. Or not the Roselle, oh my god. Attacking Hyzant.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And fighting the, what do they call it? The automaton that is the Hierophant, which was super cool.
I loved that reveal. Like, I'm not going to lie, I actually liked that. I liked how how they basically made it so this person was speaking, even though it wasn't. It was just that one person orchestrating.
Yeah,
The
Edor.
entire. Yeah, Edor was just. And like I said, some of the names are blanking on me. I really should have played the game again before talking about this stuff. I'm sorry.
Hey, no, you're okay. I'm circling back to it so late. You reviewed this 2 months ago.
True.
Yeah.
But like the fact that they had somebody that was just like orchestrating like this entire like just kind of orchestrating how bad this world's been messed up by the whole salt trade, the slavery, the brutality, just by basically him wanting to have all this power but want to blame it on somebody else, basically. Like, it's the Hierophant behind the curtain saying it all, not me. Like, that kind of lunacy. The ending that I got, it actually talked about the fact that that Norzelia itself was actually underwater at one point. Like, the entire land was basically like buried underwater, and at one point there was, I think it was like, I can't remember what god it was, but it was basically like their god that basically like lifted the land into the ocean, and then there was this entire different nation outside of Norzelia itself that you were actually going out and seeking. I won't say what happens during that ending, but that's just kind of one of the revelations, and it kind of spoke. It was kind of true in that regard because, near the ending of the game, you get to see that in the cave that Dragan died. Because he was trying to gain power by having control over what was in that deposit. It was salt. It was something that could literally threaten Hyzant's entire, power. And I actually loved how far they went just on the world building itself, like how the world even came to be the way that it was, just by letting you experience these endings. Like, granted, these were the only two. I experienced the ending that you got to. I didn't experience the third one yet, the one when you sided with Hyzant, because I just don't think I can be in a sound mind, even if it's just to experience it in a game. I don't think I can do that.
Yeah. I was forced because I didn't have the information to persuade everyone. I tried to persuade everyone to free the Roselle, to take the opportunity and go with Frederica's plan, is what I was trying to do. But we ended up going with Benedict's. And I don't see, outside of a morbid curiosity, going with Roland's plan to give everyone up to Hyzant and just go, some people, I understand his argument of that there's always going to be haves and have-nots. At least we know that everyone but the Roselle will prosper. And as much as I'm like, personally, like, nah, I can't get down with that, dude. I can play devil's advocate in my brain enough to go, I see where you're coming from, but no, and especially, like, I tried to put myself in Serenoa's shoes as much as possible. And even though the arrangement of his wedding with Frederica is kind of like a fake, like, peace offering almost thing, that luckily Frederica and Serenoa do like each other. Even though I kind of went back and forth. Sometimes I was like, man, Roland and Frederica seem to align on more things. But then later in the game, I think when Roland kind of starts to, the weight of everything that's on him starts to shake his foundation.
That man lost so much in a short amount of time span.
Everything.
Like, he lost his kingdom, his dad, his brother, and Gustave literally married his sister. So it's just like, how much more can this guy take?
Yeah. He is for sure a victim of circumstance and everything that happens to him.
That's why he was weak. Like, and that's why it kind of hurt me to side with, like, whenever you side with Benedict, and it's basically like at that very end, like, you actually have. I mean, I really wish it was an actual fight and not a cutscene fight, but I understand why they did it like that. But the fact that they made you either fight Benedict, Roland or Frederica, depending on the choices you make. Because I imagine, like, if you
Ooh.
side with if you side with Hyzan, I think, because you would basically be, siding with the people that enslaved her people. Like, I'm pretty sure she would fight you. That's just what I was gaining from that. I haven't actually experienced that ending yet. I really should at this point, but the fact that they have the characters actually fight, because it's such a crucial decision. It's something that I was just kind of like, oh no, don't make me do this. Don't make me watch this. I love these people. Don't make me fight against them. And that's hard to do. Like, it's hard to make characters that you really love, that you could still disagree with, and that you never really want to get rid of. Because you lose Roland, you can lose Benedict, or as I presume, you could lose Frederica. And I can't imagine, and just from a pure gameplay standpoint, I can't imagine not having someone like Frederica, because her spells are, she's powerful. I love that.
Frederica's the GOAT. So, like, when Sarah Noah died, and not in story wise, but died in gameplay sense, I was like, all right, well, I got Frederica, so it's all good. But I mean, don't get me wrong, Hawk Dive is a great move, and I loved being able to expand its range to be able to hit, because like later on there's like some barriers that you can hit people through, that if they're far enough away or you position yourself right, they can't hit you, which was awesome. But no, that going with Benedict's choice and having that fight with Roland, and Sarah Noah deciding to not strike him down in front of everybody, and Roland kind of packing his bags and telling Huette, like, your job is to protect Sarah Noah now, like, you don't have to protect me. And it's talked about a great character. I loved Huette. Huette was awesome.
She's an unsung hero, even in like the like a lot of the side stories that they make you do, like not like the ones that you find on the map, like the ones that I think it's press the plus button and then you get to experience like different stories. As you go through and you strengthen your convictions, you get to see more of it, and you actually start to see a softer side to Yvette. Like, she's not like a completely battle hardened person that's just completely loyal. Like, she actually is soft, wants to have fun, but she really can't considering her position. And at one point, like, she even starts thinking about the fact that she might actually have like feelings for Roland, but she can't really complicate stuff like that because of her role as the King's Guard. So every character is deep. Like, even Benedict, like, everything that he had to go through and see and vow to, like, you understand, like, he's being very manipulative. Like, I understand, like, it's not exactly a great character trait, but the reasons why he's like that, like, even he laments about the fact that he has to act as brutal as he does because he just wants to fulfill his vow to Sarah Noah's mother. So
he reminded me of Snape from Harry Potter.
And that's actually a good comparison. I like that.
He clearly loved Sarah Noah's mother and promised to protect her child no matter what, and he was hell-bent on making sure that he lived to his fullest potential. And despite kind of being like, I'm gonna make this kid the king of Norzelia. Is everything okay?
Sorry, there's just something outside. Sorry, my bad. Continue, my bad.
No, you are okay. I just wanted to make sure like somebody wasn't calling you and you had to get up and do something. But I just think that Benedict. The whole time I thought his name was like a giveaway, like some foreshadowing that he was going to betray us at some point. And to play through the game and knowing his motivations and everything, I think even though he was manipulating a lot of stuff behind the scenes, he was doing so with good intentions. And I know people say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think he managed to successfully live up to his promise, or the vow that he put in place, and he looked at things very objectively, and I think looking at things objectively is always going to come across as cold to somebody. And he was just willing to play he's a strategist, so he's looking for whatever's the most important. How do we get that to be the end goal? Like, how do we ensure that end goal is seen to fruition? And when it came to the very end, where you had to make that pretty monumental decision, I'm glad that the party didn't side with Roland. I'll put it that way. Yeah. If I couldn't get the Roselyn ending, or the Frederica ending, I'm glad that my party at least decided to go with Benedict, because I couldn't go down the other road. I mean, I would out of morbid curiosity, but seriously disagreed with it.
It's just a stupid decision.
Yeah.
But but like I said, even with like the characters that you love, I actually liked some of the characters that I hated, if that makes any sense. Characters like Gustadolf, for instance. Like, it's weird to like a villain. It really is, because it's like you don't want to sound a little bit weird, like, oh my god, I love what he's doing, but at the same time, it's like, how could you not love a man that could literally see an opportunity to start a war, go all the way through with it, be the most brutal person you could ever see, add so much insult to injury, and then just basically walk away from it for a little bit? Like, it's... you just don't see that in a lot of games. You really don't.
Yeah, making a villain that is charismatic and kind of in a weird, not, it isn't like winning you over necessarily, but I think of like the actor Christoph Waltz. He manages to play villains or like unsavory characters in a way where you're so charmed by them that you're kind of like, dude, I'm trying to hate you, dude. Like, come on.
Or someone like Giancarlo, either one, yeah.
Yeah. And he, I think at the end, teaming up with S. Frost, where he kind of sees, like, okay, I've lost. I'm down on my luck. And if I'm going to hear you out on what your plan is for peace and ensuring that everyone has salt and everyone can prosper and everyone can continue to live how they want to live in terms of the culture of their nation or their, kingdom. I thought that him seeing it that way and kind of going, you know what? I stand with you guys. Let's do this. I think he's a ruler that was really trying to look out for his people and get out from underneath the thumb of Hyzant. And if that meant taking down Glenbrook in the process, it was just his way of ensuring that his people weren't fighting in the streets over salt, I'm guessing, Yep. And exactly. So, but that's the nuance of this game that's so interesting, is I think immediately you start playing and you look at S. Frost as almost like they're the big bad. That's what it feels like. And as you continue to progress through the game, you start to realize, no, it's really Hyzant. Like, they're the people that are, or the nation that are, their government, the Saintly Seven, are corrupt. They know the truth and they're lying to their people, and they're enslaving an entire race of people to serve that lie. And I don't think S. Frost is doing anything near as bad as that.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't go there, so I don't know for sure, but maybe you can enlighten me on that if they are doing something as unsavory as that.
No, it's basically just what you said. Like, obviously, they're making that they made the death knell too, and like you could tell like that was just going to be like a primary weapon of war for them. Like I don't think it was specifically designed for Hyzant. I think they stated that it was to like kind of penetrate like shields like that, but it was just like if anybody comes to invade us, we at least have one kind of weapon that we can actually fire to do it. So it's like they were making stuff that was more or less protective, but they saw an opportunity to strike back if they felt threatened, basically. Like whenever Dragan basically threatened them by basically saying like, if you don't make me, God, I'm blanking on the role that he wanted. I'm sorry.
Who is it?
Dragan wanted to be
Dragan.
Prime Minister. Dragan, Prime Minister.
Yeah.
There we go. He wanted to be the Prime Minister of Esfrost. So whenever he had the salt in his hands, basically, he basically sent a message saying, "Hey, promote me to Prime Minister, and I will, give the salt to Esfrost. And with that, you actually have a much stronger position of power. Like you could actually challenge Hyzant while looking savory to Glenbrook." But he also stupidly kind of said like, okay, if if you don't, I'm going to give it to Glenbrook instead. And he basically took that as a sign of treason, like, oh, so you're being enticed by another nation, so I can invade this country. And he did it. And during that scene, the entire party was there as well, so he could actually blame the entire murder on them as well, and take that as another sign to justify their invasion.
Yeah,
like it's amazing to see just how, like, if you just pay attention to like the writing and everything like that, like you get to see how far they go into people's minds. Like in New Game Plus, or well, not even New Game Plus, just like the regular dialogue. Whenever you're just playing as Serenoa and just having normal conversations with people, the conversations that you would have, like 3 dialogue options, they would let you see what Serenoa is thinking in those specific times. Like the one I like to call back to is whenever he first meets Frederica. Like she asks him like, what does my pink hair mean to you? And you can either do like a romantic thing, a thing of logic, or a thing of God, I can't remember the other one. But it's just the fact that you get to see 3 different options that are fully written out, and there's 3 different reactions to it. You get to see into people's minds and how they're affected by certain bits of dialogue.
Yeah.
God, I love the story of Triangle Strategy.
Yeah, I remember that specific question that she asks you, and I remember I said something like, I think it's beautiful, but what I find more appeal, or like what's more interesting to me, is your prowess on the battlefield. And I think like if you sat and really dissected every single one of those options, you could probably find like its merit and its downside. But I think that just that example right there highlights what's so great about Triangle Strategy, is that every decision has its merit and every decision has its downside, except maybe giving the people to Hyzant. Like
yeah, it depends on the person though. Like we're not gonna shame anybody that has certain problems. But
yeah. I mean, I know that they're just sprites at the end of the day, and but
they're excellently written sprites. I'll give them that one.
Yeah, totally. So in terms of gameplay, I figured let's start with the scales of conviction and the moments where you're trying to persuade people, or using the exploration moments to gather information. I think that there's some really poignant moments. There's like the earlier ones that are just kind of training you, that don't feel like they carry that much weight, but the moments like when you're in the Rosellan village and you're looking for the hidden items throughout and not finding everything you need to be able to persuade, or because I guess it's not a scale of convictions moment, but you're trying to find items that something is the key, that if you show it to the elder of the Rosellan village, you get to progress. The first time I didn't find the I didn't realize. Yeah, I didn't realize that. Like, I thought if I talked to somebody and walked away, there was no merit in circling back and talking to that same person.
Yeah.
And
but they changed your mind on that. Yeah, like in that specific scene, like I know we've talked about this a lot in like earlier in the podcast, but it was just like it's a scene where basically, like, if you don't understand the game mechanic, you're not going to be able to progress. Like, it'll keep giving you a game over screen. You have to learn that, okay, I need to talk to this person because they're going to tell me that, if there's always there's something that they believe is in, the Elder's room, but you'd have to talk to somebody to get them away from that. So then you talk to Frederica to lure the Elder out. You go into the house, and then you find it. But if you don't do all of that, all you're going to see is the Elder. He's not going to give up a secret like that, obviously, considering how much weight it carried. But for the Skills Conviction, though, I just love the fact that you could actually go around and just talk to as many people as possible and just basically, persuade them in that degree. Like, it's going around in the exploration segment, finding little bits of information, and then you see like this little dialogue option unlock. And I thought that was like something that would only be like, okay, if I made this decision earlier, this dialogue option would open depending on that. It's like, no, you actually have to take advantage of the exploration segments. And I don't know if they properly convey that to you. I think they leave it for you to kind of figure out.
Which I think some people could look at as being like obtuse game design.
Right.
But to a certain degree, I think that it speaks to the design, like maybe like the mission statement of the design, to set out respecting the intelligence of the player enough to appreciate the nuance of what the story is doing. And that also bleeds into the gameplay of like, because I thought those exploration segments, I was like, oh, okay, this feels a bit shallow. There's not really a lot going on. You're kind of just talking to people. And then slowly I realized, like, hold on, there's a depth to this that is deceivingly, like, it seems surface level. But as soon as, like, I feel like as the game progressed, it slowly hammered home the importance and like of those moments. And there's nothing worse than talking to a character and seeing one of the options is locked and you clearly didn't find whatever was going to unlock that, and kind of being like, oh wow, like why is that? And you probably lose out on some opportunities because of that. But I think as long as you're not playing to like follow a path or see everything and do everything, if like your first playthrough you just kind of go and whatever happens. I know that's how I played the game, and I found the game to be great, even though I wasn't trying to uncover everything, and just whatever I found, and whatever options I had, I picked the best of those. Sorry.
And whenever those segments come in, like whenever you see like a thing is locked, like it's worth noting that you can't go back once you start a conversation that has those kinds of elements to it. Like, you are stuck making those decisions, and I'm pretty sure both of those other decisions don't really persuade the person as much as that third option would have. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if this was in your playthrough, but there's a moment in... Oh, God, I'm trying to remember. You're in Hyzant, and you actually have to do some investigating. You need to be able to basically uncover some corruption to paint one of the Saintly Seven into this corner to basically save your skin, because if you don't, you're basically dead. Like, I think that was gonna be another game over segment. Yeah, so you have to go around the town.
I was gonna say you're looking for evidence that proves that Sorslay's hiding salt and dealing it on the side. Yeah, and it's just, as more of those came up, I was just like, wow, I didn't know literally walking around in an exploration segment was ever going to be that much fun.
Like being able to actually just like, okay, so I'm learning this. I got to talk to this person, but then after that, this unlocks over here, so I got to talk to that person. It's just, it's deep. That's basically the basic way to say it. So
yeah, that was. I feel like the turning point where I realized that there's merit to speaking with somebody, and if you're paying attention and they say something, to circle back. Because in that moment, I talked to the merchant, and the merchant mentions like, "Hey, I'm closing up shop for the day. Like, I don't have time to sell my wares." But then you talk to the guard at the top of the area, and he says like, "Oh, we could send a message for you to so and so, but we don't have a pencil." But then if you go back and talk to the merchant, he's like, "Oh, well, here's a pencil. You could just have it." And then you can go back and send the message, and that's a piece of evidence, or not a piece of evidence, but it's like something that is going to make sure that like reinforcements arrive, or I think what is happening there is you're proving that you understand the order of like operations inside of the nation to send off that like courtesy of like, "Hey, I think like we're going to bring this to you. Here's, I'm sending this to you. So I'm not just walking in and like slamming something on your desk and being like, we have to do something about this now." It was like kind of like a courtesy message to a leader, if I remember correctly. But yeah, no, those segments, the way the exploration and the scales of conviction tie together and really shape where the story goes is super interesting. And like, I still can't believe that. I mean, it's so tightly connected that you can get that game over if you don't find the salt crystal under the rug. And and I don't know.
And I actually want to see like in another playthrough, like what would happen if I actually did, if I didn't actually antagonize Hyzant, like if I didn't go to protect the Rizalin village, like, what would I have to do on that? What would I have to do then? Like, instead of having to discover the salt crystal and not get completely destroyed by Hyzant's forces, what would I have to do then? Like, that's a little bit more replayability. It's like, okay, what else can I do aside from doing this? Yeah.
I think Triangle Strategy is going to be a game that I end up circling back to at some point just to explore all those other options. And I think I'm going to feel like I'm playing a completely different game. That's going to be really cool. And in terms of the combat and like party members, like because there's a plethora of optional recruits for you to bring into the fold. And as you make choices throughout the game, you build up Serenoa's convictions, and the convictions are liberty, utility, and I think morality. Yeah. And you build those convictions, and based on your initial playthrough, you won't see the metrics, but on New Game Plus, you can see what's going on so that you can manipulate it, is my understanding. And I'm interested to know, out of the optional characters, because there are a lot that I never even met. So the entire list is Narv, who's really cool, Hasabara, who I never met. I have no idea who that is. Julio.
I'd have to see like their character models actually to remember like the name, like the names aren't. For the side characters, considering they're never like in the story, it's really hard to get connected with them or have them stick out in your memory outside of the gameplay. Like certain characters, like I think we're gonna ask, like, out of all the characters that were available, like which ones did I like the most? Or I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Hey, no, you're okay. I guess I was gonna, because like I think that the optional recruits, when you spend time in the encampment, you don't have to talk to them necessarily. There's some that play a role in the encampment, which is cool. Like the barkeep, Archibald. It's the person that you can go talk to that will like where you can spend your kudos points. And but some
The
are
blacksmith, the merchant, and yeah,
yes,
I know what you're talking about.
yeah, and yeah, Jens is the blacksmith, I believe. But Narv was the boy whose grandfather was that great mage, and
Oh yeah.
he had the wind abilities
Oh yeah,
that were really cool.
And on one level, actually, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get off on a tangent, but like, what is it? The one level where you're fighting in like a wheat field, you can actually, um, if you had both Frederica and Narv like next to each other, if an enemy was close to you, what you could do was like have her light like one little area on fire, but then with Narv's wind abilities, you could actually blow the fire to even more squares of the wheat field. Like it's actually like it was actually kind of cool to see that much. I hate to keep saying it, but it's deep. Like and with the shamaness, her name escapes me, but if you're standing in,
I was to say I think I might be able to find it. I think it's Azana.
Azana, there we go. Yeah, I think that's right. Like whenever you're basically like whenever people are just like standing in like open fields like water, like whenever you zap like one person, everybody gets zapped for like a certain amount of damage. Like it's not a lot, but there's also a chance of paralysis. So you can actually you can actually make her into like a crowd control kind of person, and it's awesome just to see like that. It's just like a little touch, but it works so well.
Yeah, it's so interesting to, because like I for the most part didn't swap out too many of my players. I used Archibald quite a bit, and Julio I used a lot. And then
Julio was the was it the battle point kind of person, the guy that had the kid that had like the glasses, the person that would
yes,
that could increase your battle points. Okay, I'm just making sure.
yeah. It's funny because I didn't use him to like his full potential, I don't think, because there were a few times where like I was I granted Anna like 2 extra TP so that I would have a take cover after the next thing I was going to do, because you know you're trying to balance like okay, if I use Poison Dagger, it's going to use one of my turn points, and then I won't be able to use take cover. But if I used Julio to grant Anna some extra TP, then she'll be able to use the Poison Dagger and then use take cover and evade everything. And just, I mean, that I think is the proper use of Julio. I almost use him as like another swordsman, until I started to realize like, hey, it would probably be really beneficial for me to swap him out for somebody more like, I think I ended up using what was the character's name again, Corentin, as like he was the ice mage that you get from the ministry.
Right. Sorry.
Because no, you're okay. I
so many characters.
I enjoyed Frederica's style so much that I figured, like, even though, like, almost how you were saying with Narv, where you could blow the fire to more squares, I could use Frederica to set a square on fire and continue to burn an enemy after that turn passed. But in doing so, I might have accidentally put fire on a square that one of my friendlies was standing on. But if I got to play as Corentin next, I could set that damage to hit, and the ice would put out the fire for my friendly, but also damage the enemy character again. And then I didn't have to worry about when the turn rolled around, my person getting hurt by the fire, and kind of using them to kind of play those two sides. And to me, just everything from unit placement to the units that you pick and the interchangeability and experimenting with other characters. And I mean, you could play the game with, when it comes to the battle segments, you could swap out almost every main character and play it a completely different way. And I even felt like, you know, if you swapped in like a level 8 when you're up at like level 17, if they attacked somebody, it still hurt them, but that character would level a lot quicker.
Yeah, like not even just like hurting somebody. What you could actually have, like there's this one character, I can't remember her name. It's the nurse that's from Hyzant, the one that lost one of her patients because she had to help somebody else.
Yeah. Medina.
One of the things that I did with her was whenever I needed her for another segment, because I knew I was going to need another healer. So I went ahead, and this is how I learned that you actually got your items back after if you fail the mission. I had her basically just throw healing items at people to basically keep their health up, and she would actually get XP from doing that too. Like, you didn't actually have to have her go up to somebody and just like stab them or something like that. You could actually just have them do just like beneficial tasks to heal them. Like, that's how people like Gilo could level as well. How
Benedict with Bulwark or Raging Beast.
Bulwark, or giving somebody an extra turn and everything like that. Yeah, there's just a variety of ways to just like have all of your characters level up, and even if you need that specific person, it's not like, okay, so they're level 9, I can't use them at all because I need them at level 30. It's like, no, you could just you could throw your entire match if you want to. Just have him go around, level up to level 30, and then you have him, you know, exactly where you want him for that match now, and then you can basically get through it if you needed that specific character. Yeah. And whenever it comes to unit placement, one of the things I love to do was basically surround a boss. Like, whenever I fought Sorcelay, what I did was have it so Anna was behind him and basically have Roland go up to him. And what I would do was, whenever it came to their turns the next time around, was make it so Anna did the attack that basically melted somebody's entire armor away. Like, it's her ultimate ability. And what I would do after that is with Roland, I would have him do his ultimate attack, which is like the 4 Raging Dragons or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's a weird Japanese name, and I loved it. But those 2 attacks alone literally just killed Sorcelay in just one exchange, because you melted somebody's entire armor, which then made it so that attack also did extra damage, but then you had somebody's incredibly powerful attack that did like multiple attacks in a row also just completely destroy somebody's health bar. And that was very useful for other bosses in the game. Like, I won't spoil it because I know you didn't do the golden route, and I'm just going to say this right now. That entire segment of that playthrough, it's going to drive you nuts. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Yeah, I remember when I proposed the idea of like, hey, I'm going to play Triangle Strategy. When I beat it, do you want to do a review discussion? You were like, yeah, do the golden route. Actually, play it how you want to, and then maybe do it after the fact.
Yeah. Because if you didn't have all the characters for the golden route, you're kind of screwed because you need literally everybody.
Got you. Okay.
It's kind of one of those things. I'm not going to spoil it and how it does it. Yeah.
I would love to build up to that because I feel like Triangle Strategy is going to be in the upper echelon of my favorite games of all time, I think. Because, man, it's just so good. I can
see that.
But really quick, I want to run down some of the lists of the characters that, you know, I think, you know, we've talked about Sarah Noah and his involvement in the game, that like I feel like he plays like a Prince Ashitaka from Princess Mononoke, kind of like trying to bridge everything. And you know, people might call him a glorified fence setter, you know, but ultimately he is as democratic of a leader as possible. He leaves everything up to his party, and he makes no decision without consulting everybody. And you know, that plays into the gameplay and the scales of conviction and all that. But what, like, as a main character, what did you think of Sarah Noah?
Well, like you said, whenever it comes to him being like the prince, like one thing that I think they kind of nailed with him was that, yeah, he's democratic, he's kind, he's understanding, everything like that. But whenever it comes to actually needing to defend something, like he actually gives it his all. He puts his life on the line. He's not just somebody that like, sits behind everybody and just tells people what to do. Like he actually does take action. He's somebody that does take the initiative. He helps. Like even sometimes in the gameplay, like he'll be the first to fall sometimes. Like I just love that about him, and it's hard to see a main character like that because most of the time, like a main character in like a JRPG can sometimes just be like it can be very generic. It can be somebody like Jack Garland from the recent Strangers of Paradise, where he can either just be somebody that's trying to make people laugh half the time, or look cool, or somebody that's just like an everyman that's just completely inoffensive. But with Serenoa, like even though he's a main character and he has to be as has to have like that broad appeal to people, he's still somebody that feels like he has his own distinct character, thoughts, and to play to the pun, he has his own convictions in life. So.
Yeah, no, totally. Frederica, I thought, Frederica, as soon as you meet her, you immediately see her on the battlefield and you're made aware of her abilities and strengths. And I think, although like you're put in this position where, some bandits show up, which we'll talk about later, Trish and Travis, I think are their names. Yeah. Travis and Trish. And, they very easily could have fallen right into damsel in distress kind of territory. But instead, Serenoa and Roland show up, and I think even like Gila's like, you'll be surprised at her like competency on the battlefield, or we'll help out in whatever way we can. And then she's very clearly like her abilities are super powerful. And then when you get into like her just trying to figure out her motivations and like figure out her history, and by the end of the game, like she was a character that I tried to max out as soon as possible in terms of like stats. I did see the merit, especially when you start to uncover some more stuff in the story, that her history, like at first I think you could look at it like, oh, she just wants to find out what happened to her mom. But the more you find out about it, you start to see how much of a role her mom plays in the overarching story. So if you do the thing that feels like you're just pandering to your girlfriend by doing whatever she wants to do all the time, it's actually rewarded in that what she wants to do actually is super important and sheds light on so much. I thought that she was a pretty great character. What did you think?
I love Frederica. Like literally her entire character, I think, is one of the most like you said, like it could have just been like a damsel in distress, somebody that's just weak that you wouldn't really care about, and maybe like she would snap at one point. Like no, right from the very beginning, she's courageous and fierce. And I think that has a lot to do not by the fact that she's a Rosellan, but because of her upbringing. Like she's in Aesfrost, like you could tell the abuse that she had to endure by being the sister to Thalos and Erica, and having a father that would not care about her, like Gustadolf, made her strong as what she was. And for a while, like she doesn't seem like she's really being that strong of a character because she's in the company of somebody like Serenoa, Benedict, and the rest of House Wolffort. But that's because of the fact that she left a very dangerous household and went to somebody that was caring. Like, they actually cared for her. So that actually gave her an opportunity to be like, okay, if I know I'm not in a hostile environment, I would like to know about, my heritage. Like, it's not like she's being in service of, like, another character in the lore. Like, it literally just feel like she went through her own trauma and she wants to figure out, okay, why does everyone hate the Rosellan? Why do they have to hide? Why do they have to be enslaved? Why did everything have to happen that way? And it comes down to the fact that slavery was happening beforehand, and they made it even worse whenever Orlea basically God, it's part of Frederica's ending, so I won't talk about it that much. But like, the crystal got to where it was because of Orlea. Like, she literally made it known that it's not that Hyzant isn't just the only place that's going to have salt, but they're going to keep using religion as their tool to manipulate the rest of the world. And I loved just seeing that entire journey, all the lore, all the stuff I got to see just because of Frederica was amazing. I think she's one of the best characters of that entire game. It's incredible.
Yeah, agreed. Like 100%. Just so if anybody watches this and decides to leave a comment, I just don't want them to come at you all crazy. Frederica is the sister of Gustadolf. I don't know if we ever meet her father.
Wait, is that?
Yeah, you're okay. You're okay. I was like,
God. My bad.
I'm gonna do Joe a solid real quick. No, you're totally fine.
You're good. Like that. It's been a bit, but still, like the entire hostile environment that she had to endure by being, like what was it? Wasn't it was Thalos and Erica like her nephew and cousin then? Basically, was that basically what it was?
I believe so. Let me just double check. Yes, a sister of the Archduke. So yes, yeah.
So basically, they were just all siblings, but still, like being in that kind of hostile environment with siblings like that, like it's rough. It really is.
Yeah, especially when they came across like twins that, you know, I don't know if they exactly were twins, but they came across like they had like a Jesse and James kind of mentality from like Pokemon, where they just kind of ganged up on her, especially because she was like a half sister and she was Rosalyn, so it was like easy to ostracize her and make her.
Even with Thalos and Erica though, like, you know, me and you basically experienced like the same was a battle scenario with them, like whenever they were on the bridge, like whenever you take out either Thalos or Erica, like when the one that's remaining standing, like I'll always remember this with Thalos. I killed Erica on the bridge, and his response wasn't like it wasn't like this menacing hatred towards Frederica or anything like that. In response, it was basically him looking over at Erica and saying, like, you know, basically saying like, are you dead? No matter, like, basically like being in denial of the situation. Like, they still think that they're going to succeed, which technically they were, because that was one of the battles where I only had like one person left, so I was kind of on the skin of I kind of wanted by the skin of my teeth, but at the same time, like, it's just the way that they wrote all of their characters, with that even in every one of the combat scenarios, like, you get to see like the civilian rivalry, even, and how they acted towards one another, like in this scenario. Like, I think Thousand Erica say, like, you know, Frederica, we don't have to kill you. You can just apologize. And she basically just says, no, I'm not going to. And that's awesome character development. I loved it.
Yeah. Frederica, she's immediately strong. She finds even more strength throughout the story, which is really awesome. And, you know, in terms of like that battle on that bridge, like there are a lot of really tough battles throughout the game. And like, I think the battle on the bridge was really tough, took a lot of strategizing. Oddly enough, the battle with Avlora on the ships, I beat on the first try, which I was like, hey, all right, like, okay. But then the battle where you're defusing the bombs in the mine.
Oh God, that one. I hated that fight so much.
That one I made all the mistakes. I made the mistake of not paying attention to the bombs, paying too close attention to the bombs. Because it's really, as long as you defuse all the bombs, and it's like if you send some scouts out to, or like archers or people that just have high movement to take out the bombs, but then you try to pick off everybody else, you can kind of time it, because it's really just defeat everybody and defuse the only bombs that are out there, but the longer you take, the more bombs get placed, and
as you take out more enemies, the more enemies come back in. And you're like, oh come on, man! I just took out one. Why are you giving me 3 more to take out?
Yeah.
But with that scene, I think what really made it so I think I failed that scenario 5 or 6 times even on easy, and that just shows how difficult the game is. For even I don't know how many times you failed, but with me, like it was more or less because of the fact that whenever I saw how many. Like, I would go over and, like, just scroll over it and basically say, like, oh, okay, so 63 turns. So that means for my players, okay, so I only have, like, 6 or 7. So I can get over there in, like, 7 turns. Like, no. Actually, that means 63 turns altogether. You have to rush and get over there before it runs out. Because it can... And, like, I could say that's totally unfair, but at the same time, it's like, no, this is just testing my strategy and getting over there. Like, I hate how many times we've had to use the game's name as a pun here, but it's like it just I just love the way that it tests like everything that you like, how well you can handle something. Like what is it? Whenever you have to fight it's one of the mock battles where you can actually you have to make sure you at least have one person in like one small area, but you have to take out everybody that's around it. But then they start to condense in that one small area, and you have to make sure that you're well defended. It's like it's all this little stuff that you never had to think about, and now you're having to wrap your head around it and actually do it. Like the combat's tough, but we're talking about the characters though. My bad.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I realized that we didn't dive too much into those battles, so I wanted to bring them up, like some of the bigger ones real quick and then circle back. But yeah, I did find that like in that battle with the bombs particularly, it really highlighted unit placement, making sure you had the right items added to your players so that you could maximize their movement or their evasion. And that, like, I used what was her name, Milo. She had the fans.
Yeah.
And she could moon jump.
She could go all the way to one area, but then you could use like a move that literally like has her like just leap to another thing. So it gives you like 2 entire turns in 1 turn. It's kind of unfair, but I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, I would use her to moon jump like behind somebody, hit them, and then run away and get to a safe spot. And use that to like slowly chip away at people as I would make my way over to bombs. And I mean, the strategy, like to harken back to the name, is like just the options that you have are so deep, and like you may not even realize that you could do that if you didn't choose to play as Milo. You know, if you swapped her out for somebody else, and maybe somebody else had their own benefits, but. Real quick, let's dive into Roland, somebody that I think is a incredibly complex character who's, at first I think I like Roland more than I like Sarah Noah, but then as we kept playing through the game, it just seemed like it was the passion that Roland has that made me like be like, oh, this guy's so cool. But by the end of the game, I think you see that like Sarah Noah's measured, diplomatic, democratic way of going about things is a little bit more admirable. And maybe it's like seeing Roland's like fall from grace, and that in terms of the way that my story played out, and I'm assuming yours did on the first playthrough. But, you know, I also kind of, I don't know how you felt, but I felt like Roland was kind of like weak in the combat department. But let me know what you think about Roland.
Well, first to talk about just like his character overall, like I love how whenever he was introduced, he was basically this carefree prince. Like he just wanted to hang out with his friend. He didn't really care about his family all that much. But as time went on and the war went on as well, like he saw his kingdom was snatched from him. His father died. Like, literally, the father got beheaded in front of the entire kingdom, and he didn't even get a chance to even see it or have an opportunity to save him.
Yeah.
He lost the Dawn Spear, like somebody that I think was actually his mentor. So he lost his mentor, his brother, his father, and then after that, his sister got married off to the person that did it all, and all of that. I was expecting Roland to just lose it completely. I thought he was going to go. I thought there was going to be like an entire arc where he just couldn't handle it, like he wasn't able to talk or anything like that. I thought he was just going to be broken down, but he kept going, and I admired that. But I think because of the fact that he never had a chance to grieve, that ended up wearing him down over time.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where we talked about, him handing over Hyzant to... Sorry, not him handing over Hyzant. Him handing Glenbrook to Hyzant. And I think that was because of the fact that if he did that, he saw that he could actually have time to heal. Like, I understood that perspective. Like, I mean, obviously, we don't agree with it. But it's just like, I understand why he would want to give up overall. He doesn't want to fight anymore. Like, he's just somebody that just doesn't want to deal with it. He just wants to have a chance to rest and heal. And in the ending that you got, like, at that very end, like, you saw him trying again to be a leader again, but he hasn't even had time to deal with the fact that he couldn't even be a leader before.
Yeah.
So I feel for him. I hated everything that he went through, even if I think, some of the story beats that he went through, like him, pretending he was the Dawn Spear for a while, which ironically the Dawn Spear comes back to life anyways, so that was kind of like a weird thing, but I'm not going to complain.
By the way, I think, I don't know because I didn't get the ending, but the Centralia, the place where the Rosellan, like, are rumored to have, like, all fled to, or, like, that's their, like, bastion, where there's, like, a lot of Rosellan. That's where, Serenoa and Frederica say, let's free the Rosellans at the end of the game and take them to Centralia. I think that is where Maxwell, or the Dawn Spear, washed up when he floated down the river. I think he arrived in Centralia, was brought back to, like, got his strength built up and, like, taken care of by the Roselle in Centralia, and then goes back. I think they loosely allude to that, but I don't know if that's true or not. It's just the impression I was getting.
Right too, because what was it? It was because he was walking back with Roselle too. So I was actually assuming those were the people from the village, but then I remembered how exactly would he have ended up in that village as opposed to, basically downstream.
Yeah.
So,
and they would have seen him when they went back,
Yeah. But as far as Roland went with the gameplay, I found him to be kind of standard to a degree. Like, he's not exactly weak. It's just the fact that he's more of an opportunist character for the battlefield. Like I said, his ultimate attack, the 4 dragons or whatever. I gotta look it up later. But like, if you get him in a position where he's behind somebody, and if you use somebody like Anna to melt somebody's defenses away, he could one-shot a boss. Like, he's a very good character for the one-strike thing, but as far as it goes, like, as a character that would be used for more than just that attack, it's just, he's kind of weak in that regard. And I also noticed that he died a lot quicker than everybody else. Like, I actually noticed that. Like, he was just about as squishy as Frederica, but Frederica at least could attack from range. So
I put, I think, like a defense ring or defense amulet or something on Roland to try to make him viable, because I kept finding that he would get like 2 hit and just be done, and I'm like, man, I hardly got to use this guy. Like, I want to use him because I see the merit of like having like a character on a mount with a lance that can hit 2 squares in front of him, and wish he could do more. But you kind of shed some light on Roland in an interesting way that I hadn't considered, where like he really did just he knew that his friends and outside of maybe Frederica and the rest of the nation outside of the Rosellan people would be safe, and he could begin to actually process everything that was happening. And he sat and thought about it and came up with his own like twisted logical conclusion of like, at least if we do this, mostly everyone I know will be okay, and I can continue or I can move on and grieve, and at least everyone will have salt and everyone will be taken care of and their needs will be met. And I don't know, maybe it was a little short-sighted in the grand scheme of things because they had salt in abundance. All they had to do was continue to keep mining it and finding it everywhere. But
that's the one thing that always bugged me about the story. Like, it didn't detract from it, but it was the fact that if there's this mine that has all this salt, why are we still warring against Hyzant? Or, well, why are we still trying to, bend the knee to Hyzant, so to speak? Why didn't they just be like, obviously, like, they want to have power over it, but I don't know why they just couldn't come to like a simple agreement and just mine it and not have to bend the knee to Hyzant whatsoever and just keep things together. But yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I think that mostly comes from them knowing that Hyzant is not going to let their people realize that their teachings have been false and that their religion,
that's true,
everything would fall apart and it would not bode well for everyone. So I want to kind of like take a look at some of these characters and kind of cherry pick some of the bigger players before we move on to our final thoughts. I don't think I knew this at the time, but to talk about kind of Benedict and his role in everything that was going on, and Anna at the same time, because I didn't realize until maybe I missed it, but Anna is Benedict's adoptive daughter. And at some point I started to think like, oh, they both have white hair. Like maybe this is his daughter. And I know that if you're adopted, that doesn't mean you're going to inherit your father's hair color, but
you never know.
But I think that might've been like a tip of the cap of what was going on. And Anna's story and, going off and doing the job, like eavesdropping, finding out what Benedict wanted done, and then going and getting it done to kind of like prove her worth and to be a scout for them and a spy. And I just think that like they are, I mean, in terms of combat, I used Anna quite a bit, but I think
she never left my party. I needed her all the time. She was awesome.
Yeah, too good. I think Anna is the unsung hero in this whole thing, because even in the resolution of the story, I don't think they ever really give Anna any shine. Not that Anna would even want it, maybe.
Yeah, she was just kind of there. So
yeah, but I really enjoyed her and enjoyed, Benedict's drive. I know we talked about him probably enough with like the Snape comparisons and his involvement with kind of manipulating almost everybody to meet the ends that he needed, but with good intentions. Is there anything you want to add to Benedict and Anna?
Well, for Benedict, and not really. Like I said, we've talked enough about him, but with Anna though, like, did you see any of the character stories for her though? Like they actually did, like that. Like so they did dive into that, and I actually liked how they came to be. Like they I don't think it was accidental. I think it was purposefully killed. I think her father, but they didn't know that that they had a child, so they took it as penance and wanted to make things right by raising her. So like I think there was like a little story with her that she was trying to figure it all out, and they did. And I can't remember the exact resolution for it, but it was nice to see that she wasn't just this scout that just did whatever anybody wanted her to do. Like she at least had something that she wanted to figure out or do. She wasn't the deepest character, but I did love seeing the journey that she did go on. For gameplay, though, like I said, like she never left my party. Like the way that she maneuvered was the fact that she could literally jump up an entire like cliff, like actually do like a whole like jump up an entire cliff, go across somewhere, stop, like basically turn invisible, and then do it all again, and then basically, sneak behind enemy lines and actually start attacking from that end if you're focusing on the front end of that force as well. Like there's so much utility with her, and like I said, the ultimate attack that she has where she's just melting somebody's armor away. If you use that right before you attack somebody else again, like you could probably take out somebody's health to to basically like 1/3 left. Like if you were to fight, like I think it was like not Sorcerer, it was somebody else, I can't remember. But the next turn, if she didn't die by everybody else just going out and killing her, basically, like you could actually you could just take out that exact person that you needed to take out. And I love how the way that she was designed was to be very single target focused. Like she wasn't meant to go after multiple characters at a time or something like that. And the fact that you could throw poison to somebody if they if you didn't have enough tactical points to turn invisible, you could at least throw one pellet of poison at somebody from behind to at least start doing damage to them before you get over to them. Yeah, I love how they designed her.
Yeah, great. Again, unsung hero. A character we haven't talked about at all, but I loved, is Eridor. Just, he is the shield that you want on your team. He's the heavy, like he's your tank. He can ram people off cliff sides and into other people, and at the same time, he loves House Wolfort and Lord Simon and Serenoa, and really just wants what's best for House Wolfort and Glenbrook. And I think it'd be easy to write him off as kind of like one note, but I think that one note is really endearing. And just wanted to kick it over to you and say, like, what did you think of Eridor?
Eridor was very hearty. Like, well, first I want to talk about like the voice acting form. I loved whoever they got to do his English voice acting.
Yeah,
he was awesome. Like, even though certain lines I feel like he could have delivered them in like a different way, I'm not going to really take that away from him though. It's just kind of like that's just literally nitpicking for me. But for Eridor though, I loved his back and forths with Benedict in the character stories. Like I'm pretty sure you went through them as well. Like the fact that he wouldn't necessarily like attack Benedict, but it was more or less like a friendly disagreements, and the fact that in combat you can kind of see that he's always willing to put his life on the line through his attacks. Like there's actually like his ultimate attack was basically making it so I think it's like he and like everybody, like in like a circle around him, everybody would just be invincible. Like he's always there for people, and I really loved everything that he was. And I don't know, there's not much to really say about him in that regard.
Yeah, he's a great character that like embodies the like it is what it is. Like he is just the shield, and I think hardy. You said hardy. That's a great word to describe him. He's a lion, He's on the team. He's bold. He's intimidating, but he has the heart of a lion,
Yeah, and you mentioned like somebody like you could knock somebody off a cliff. Like I actually saw somebody who was fighting Thalos and Erica, and how they actually defeated the last of the twins. I think it was Erica. Is that they actually had him like just ram Erica off the bridge? Like she was actually at like full health, and it literally killed her like in that one hit. I was like, jeez, I did not think of that. I probably should have.
Same. No, I did the long game, the patient game of putting the archers up on the perches and just taking them out, but using Anna to be invisible and then making her visible for a moment while they were, because, you know, if you just had the two archers at the top, they wouldn't push forward, they would actually move away. But if you used Anna on the ground floor to make yourself visible for a turn, it would pull them closer, and then you could go invisible on your next turn with her and then start picking them off with arrows. And that was my method, but I never thought to use Aerodor to just push them off the bridge. That's genius.
Like with his push, like there's a lot more utility with it too. Like if you like you can also like push somebody into like a wall and they do like a little bit more damage, or you can push somebody into somebody else and it does a little bit of damage to the character that you push them into, but that other character will actually turn around and actually attack. So it'll be like that little two-sided attack that they teach you how to do in fairly early in the game. Like there's a lot of utility that he can do. It's something you don't notice until it's like, you know, you have like 6 turns to defuse a bomb, so you have to figure out something.
Yeah, no, totally. So outside of the main party, I have a number of characters that I think it makes sense for us to touch on before we go to our final thoughts. But I'm gonna speed round. I'm gonna lob them at you, and you give me your thoughts. If I have something to add, I'll add to it.
If I remember them, yeah.
If you remember, I think you'll remember them. King Regna. How did you feel? How did you feel about him letting them lie about him and admitting to it?
It was because of the fact that he knew he was going to lose regardless. But it was just kind of like, what can you actually say in that specific situation? Because if you yell, like, no, this is all Goosadol's fault, that's just, like, I think Benedict said it to Serenoa and Roland, it's like, it's just going to be the ramblings of a madman. So I feel like we just didn't get enough screen time with them. And I hated that both him and Roland's brother did not get enough screen time. Because I feel like they could have definitely fleshed out those characters. Because you knew what they meant to Roland and everybody else, but it's just the fact that we, the player, just didn't get enough chances to see them. That just kind of felt a little, bit of missed opportunity.
Yeah.
You know?
If, you know, I always think that, like, sometimes, like, let the mind wander about things and, like, try to guess what, like, might have happened. It's almost like the argument of, like, I don't need the movie Solo, even though I like the movie Solo. I don't need that to understand, like, how Han and Chewbacca got to the cantina. The fact that they're just there and they're smugglers, I can run with that. But I would love a prequel for this game to see everything that was going on with Orleia and Lord Simon and King Regna, and that the Salt Iron War prequel would be an awesome game if they do it. I feel like Triangle Strategy is probably going to be a one-off, but I would even like some like DLC, like a 20-hour DLC or something could be pretty cool.
I really want a DLC for this game. It would be so good. Octopath Traveler, like, I hate that they kind of treat them like one-offs. Like, I think they said they're going to make like a sequel to Octopath at one point, but it's like, just give me something else for now, you know?
Yeah.
But that has nothing to do with this conversation, though. Continue.
Something. We talked about Cordelia, but I think that she had merit in that when Avlora has that conversation with her about, like, kind of like, what do you want? Like, why are you asking me? And Cordelia takes that to heart and goes, yeah, no, I need to start making things happen for me. And starts scheming internally. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah,
like with Cordelia, like, I know I harped on about her voice actor, and I did mention, like, she's a very excellent character. I just think the voice acting lets her down. With Cordelia, she's actually one of the better characters. Like, it's the fact that, I don't know, maybe I just saw, like, the fact that she was getting abused by Thalos and Erica as well. Like, you could actually see that, you know, Thalos and Erica don't have, you know, Frederica to pick on anymore. Might as well choose the next best target. And then whenever she's talking to Avlora, it's a mutual loyalty agreement. The fact that Evlora literally sees that, you're weak now, but you are stronger than you think. And that you just need a shield, and you can be a sword on your own. And I love how far that she was able to go, to the point where, what was it? On the bridge scene, whenever, not the bridge,
the ship.
The ship. Like, whenever she could have just let Evlora die, but she stood in place of the spear, because she knew that it wasn't a one-way loyalty thing. It was mutual. I loved seeing them do that, because one, it was shocking. It was really shocking to see her do that, but it just showed how much she grew from being somebody that was very weak looking, to somebody that could actually stand up, even if it wasn't. Sorry,
it's okay. My dog was barking too.
It's not even my dog, it's somebody else's dog.
Oh, man.
But, yeah, final thoughts on Cordelia, though. Like, voice acting aside, she is a wonderful character. I loved seeing, like I said, like, it wasn't bad enough to the point where I wanted to skip her. Like, everything that she talked about and did, she was an awesome character, so.
Yeah. When she jumped in front of Roland, when he was trying to strike down Evlora, afterwards, I was like, Gila, what are you doing? Heal her, like, come on, and they do go, Gila, do something, and so we can get her back, and that was cool. I'm glad that they didn't just like let her die when Gila's just like standing there knowing full well she could do something about it. But
yeah, a bit of inconsistency there. It's like, look, you can heal somebody or bring them back from the dead, and then you just don't do anything in a cutscene. Really, what are you here for then?
Yeah, exactly. The only other character we can get into the Saintly Seven as kind of like a broad strokes. Like, we could talk about every character in there, because in the Saintly Seven, there's Exham Marshall, Sorsley End, Lila, who was the woman that was in the Saintly Seven. That was she seemed like kind of like the person they sent out to speak on behalf of the Saintly Seven at the big gathering at the beginning of the game, where they had like the duel between everybody. Then there was Camcel, Tenebris, and Edor, and then ultimately Serenoa ends up joining the Saintly Seven. I guess depending on how you play, there might be a story arc.
I think it's like we said, like with the story, like it'll always converge on certain points that'll always play out like sort of the same. It'll just be like different dialogue and everything like that. So at least feels like, your choices aren't completely wasted. Yeah. But even then, like, you get to experience different things along the way. Out of all the Saintly Seven, I think Sorsley was probably the most interesting ones of the bunch. Like, he wasn't somebody that was just completely loyal. He was basically a scumbag. He was somebody that literally took his opportunity to manipulate others, make extra money on the sides, and just feed into himself. He knew the position that he was in, and he took advantage of it. Even though I don't think that's moral, it's still something a little bit more interesting than somebody that's just there to order people to kill a Rosellan if they ask for water. I'm sorry, that's a little it's a little mediocre in my opinion.
Yeah.
For like it was Lila, right? The
Lila.
Woman Lila. Okay. This was a little thing that they put into the writing that I really loved. It was the fact that they talked about how the younger people of the kingdoms are always open to a new way of thinking. Like, people that are set in their ways in a much older age, like, they're not going to want to change anything. They're going to want things to be samey, or they're going to want things to be more beneficial to them. It's just the way it's just the way that it is sometimes. With Lila, Dragan, Serenoa, Frederica, they all wanted things to change a lot. Like, they wanted to I think, like, what was it? The one banquet scene, like, they were talking about how they hated the whole taxation thing, and Lila didn't shoot it down. Like, she literally did. She wanted to have a conversation about it. Like, she was fair, honest, and I feel like she could have done so much more if she wasn't somebody that had to be bound by being a saintly seven.
Yeah. She ends up becoming like the High Zant, like head person in the turn of events, where it's like Serenoa is the king of Glenbrook, Archduke, Gustadolf is the Archduke of Aspharos, and I believe, if I remember correctly, Lila becomes the head of High Zant.
Yeah, you take care of you defeat her before let's see, you defeat her, and then you fight the Hierophant in that ending, basically. Like, it's like a two-pronged attack, and like I love that they actually just gave her a chance instead of just killing her off. Like, they could have easily have just killed her off instead of basically adhering to, like I said, like the younger people in the kingdom, like, they want things to change. Like, they were more willing to forgive each other because they have a long life ahead of them. They don't want to cut somebody's life that short. Yeah. But somebody like Sorsley and people like Gustadolf, like, if you take care of them now, like, they can't, like, the way that they were running, they weren't gonna, ruin things any further,
Yeah. Outside of that, there, maybe we can end on talking about the Hierophant, and that it is this automaton that is this facade, but then when you fight that end battle with all of the it was the other, like, puppets or like marionettes almost that you had to fight. I think that the Hierophant being this automaton that was really just Edor pushing his own agenda, and I think the Hierophant being this hollow shell is a metaphor for almost all of High Zant at the end of the day. It's just this symbol that is guiding everything. And yeah, they use the what was that? The purple power that they used to, like, blow up the bridge. I forget what that's called now.
Man, I don't remember the name of that specific thing, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's their big weapon,
Yeah, and the fact that it was able to be used for that specifically was actually pretty interesting. How it could actually give life to something that's basically dead. Like, it was just a doll to sit upon a throne, so Edor could pretend that it was not him that was manipulating people. But when you were basically alluding to symbolism with the Hierophant, and something that I think was a little bit just as smart was the fact that the marionettes that fought alongside it were basically indistinct from one another while also being on strings. Like, basically they were being puppeteered. Like, basically how they were treating the Rosellans. Like, all of them, I know I'm going to sound wrong whenever I say this, all of them looked pretty much the same to them. So whenever it came down to it, they were just puppets that they could just pull the strings to get salt and everything like that. It was pretty cool. I loved what they did with that. I just hated seeing the fact that with Edor, they just needed to kill him off quicker than that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's what I think is a natural extension of their mindset is we need something that we can control and manipulate, that can do our bidding so that we don't have to be the ones to do it. And the fact that the Hierophant is exactly that is pretty well thought out. I think they nailed that. But I think with that we can move on to our final thoughts, because we're 3 minutes past 2.5 hours. So I appreciate your time.
No problem.
But I forget. What did you score Triangle Strategy in your official review?
Outside of some of the technical problems, like, whenever it comes to reviewing on lordsofgaming.net, I literally do try my best to stay as objective as I possibly can, which sucks because I really wanted Triangle Strategy to be the first 10 out of 10 that I would give on the site. It was just basically a couple of, like, it was 9.8 out of 10 instead of, like, a 10. Like, it was nearly flawless to me. Like, it was outside of some of the technical issues and some of the voice acting, like it's stuff that I just couldn't ignore, and I had to dock the score just a little bit, even if it was just that minuscule of a score. I probably could have just ignored, but I can't do that. I have to have a little bit of integrity on that front, you know. And
Yeah.
I with the review, I called it the 2D HD magnum opus because I believe whenever it comes down to all of the games that they're going to make with this style, Octopath Traveler was amazing. It was an amazing original 2D HD, original retro type of JRPG, but they're starting to use this style a little bit more for remakes of games like Dragon Quest III and Live Alive. So whenever it comes down to all of those games, all the games that I'm seeing in the future at the very least, I feel like Triangle Strategy is going to be the one that sits above all of them, to be the one that everyone's going to refer to as, okay, so you did this game that's basically a modern video game using a retro style, but also giving people enough nostalgia at the same time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think when I did my review for it, just on my YouTube channel, I thought about it for a really long time, and I use the same scoring that I would use for a Lords of Gaming review. But the reason why I gave it a 5 out of 5 out of, you know, I kept thinking that, you know, if this was a game that looked like Horizon Forbidden West or God of War or The Last of Us Part 2 or, you know, something of that scale, this would be no question in terms of the story and the gameplay and it'd be a 5 out of 5. Nobody would even question it. But I think that because of its art style, people would be like, wait, that's a 5 out of 5. And the more I thought about it, I was like, that's kind of stupid and I don't like that. And the weird little performance fluctuations, I was like, personally, I was like, I think this game would run great on anything other than the Switch. I mean, it still plays really well, but I think a lot of that can be chalked up to the increasingly apparent age of the Switch at this point. And
yeah, I mean, we've been mentioning a bit with the technical issues. Like, I'm not sure if this is ethical to even really talk about, but during the first few release weeks of the game being out there, somebody actually was able to get it on an emulator, and what they found is that they could actually run it at a full 4K at 240 frames per second. I actually watched the footage, and obviously I'm not endorsing people to, you know, pirate this game. You know, obviously support it as much as you possibly can, but if it was a game, if this game were to be on PC or just like Octopath Traveler is on Xbox right now, like it could run at a beautiful 4K 60 at the very least, and it would be one of the most impressive experiences. Yeah.
Chef's kiss. Yeah,
exactly. And it just sucks to see it be held back that much, which it's a little bit, or it's really concerning that this game's art style is literally just, you know, it's a 2D style, and each of the areas in the game were basically like little blops on the map, basically. Like there were, like, you could actually see like the world map around, you know, the actual area itself. Like what did you think about that specifically?
You mean when you were at the world map where you would select what mission you wanted to go on?
So like whenever you're at Hyzant, like like if you were to like walk all the way up the stairs and you were to look through that archway, you could see like the world map around you.
Oh yeah.
Like, did you think that was like a little weird? Did you think that was like a technical limitation? Because I took it as like a stylistic kind of thing.
Yeah.
I kind of just ignored it because it didn't really bother me at the end of the day. But I feel like if this game were to have been built on a Switch Pro or on even like an original Xbox One, I feel like they could have made it more like Octopath Traveler, where they actually had paths that you could just kind of connect in between all of these different areas of the game. But I don't know. It's just kind of weird to see.
Yeah, I think there was an interview with the creators where they were talking about the reason they went with triangle strategy this time around as opposed to Octopath Traveler. You know, Octopath was like, there were 8 different branching paths and they wanted to kind of hone it in. So that may have been their design, like the aspect of the design that everything was predicated on was like, let's dial it back a little bit. And so maybe that example of just everything beyond the parameters that you're playing in currently kind of being simplified was probably their way of just being like, what's the point? Let's just convey our intent and then kind of make it as easy as possible. And who knows, maybe it had to do with trying to keep those exploration moments running smoothly. If we were already seeing like frame rate dips and things like that going on. But yeah, I think their design philosophy, that's the term I was looking for earlier, was let's downsize it a little bit, let's simplify it a little bit, but still have that depth and nuance. And it's a kind of, I haven't played Octopath Traveler, so I'm not sure. I added it to my backlog. I was like, I'm gonna have to circle back and play this. But I think that sometimes less is more. And
yeah, I mean, definitely, like this game, like with Octopath Traveler, I gave it like, I think it was like an 8 or something like that. So the fact that Triangle Strategy, even despite the fact that it's, in my opinion, a much smaller game, it's much more condensed, and it's better for that because it's a simple pick up and enjoy kind of thing, rather than like, here's this massive world, go see all these different stories. That I thought some of those stories in Octopath were really good, really brilliant, but some of them were just kind of meh at the end of the day. So I feel like they were just trying their hand again, and they didn't fail. They didn't fail. I just wish that more people would give this game a shot, you know?
Yeah, and I'm so glad that I did, because I almost didn't. I mean, I opted for Gran Turismo 7 when it came out, and which I still really enjoy. Gran Turismo 7 is, I know everybody talks about the microtransactions, but that is a great game. But I mean,
the same people that would talk about the microtransactions probably don't even have the game anyways. I'm not going to talk about that though.
Yeah. No. There's been somebody that I was listening to on a podcast recently that picked it up and started playing it, and I was like, man, y'all were talking mad slanderous about this game, and now you've got a weeb car and on your PS5 and everything's changed. But that's not a dig at anybody. I just think it's funny because you could tell that
you gotta give games a shot if you're gonna say anything about them, in my opinion.
Yeah, and conversely, like me, I remember I was at work and I was like, you know what? If Breath of the Wild's not coming out, or Breath of the Wild 2 is not coming out this year, and I'm going to do a Nintendo podcast, I've got to play what might be the biggest game on the system this year. So I went onto the Walmart app and scheduled a pickup, and I was like, all right, I just got to get out of work. I'll go pick that up. It'll be date night. We'll go out. We'll have a good time. And then Friday, I will start playing this game. And even with my demo time, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to like it. And I'm going to find out. I'm going to take, every now and then you just got to buy something and see what happens. And I'm really, really glad that I did, because now, I have this list on my phone of all my games of the year, or the games that I'm playing, the new ones. And as I'm playing, sometimes I'll bump things up and move them around. And I was maybe 2/3 of the way through Triangle Strategy, and I just put it right at the top. I was like, yep. I'm all in on this. And every aspect of it, from the story to the gameplay, the music, the visuals, everything exceeded my expectations and blew me away. And so I can't right now, until maybe God of War Ragnarok or something. I said in my review, I don't see anything usurping its place on the throne this year.
Currently, for me, it is my game of the year. Like, it's kind of weird. Like, I mean, back a couple months ago, like that was my thought even then. Like, after I was done with Triangle Strike, I was like, this is going to be my game of the year because I know there. So I'm looking forward to a lot of games like Plague Tale, Requiem, Slime Rancher 2, and whatever else gets revealed later on this year. Like I thought the new Star Wars Jedi game was going to come out this year, but whatever. they need time, so I'm not going to worry about it. But it's just, it does show just what can still be done and how much a game that's supposedly very retro looking, that isn't as high quality, quote unquote, to people that would just take a look at it, can be at such a high place after just playing it for a little bit. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, hey, I think we can end on that. Joe, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. This has been, I mean, I've never had almost 3 hours go by so quick in my life. So,
same here.
Yeah. For anyone that doesn't already know, let the people know where they can find you and what you got going on.
Well, first off, thank you for having me. Seriously. And I want to give a massive apology for all of the little distractions, like the dog, the little whatever the heck that was in my room earlier. I don't know what kind of noise that was. But I am an assistant editor at lordsofgaming.net. My name is Joseph Repko on there. Just go to lordsofgaming.net and just check out some of the stuff that even you have some articles on there, and you do amazing work. Check out all of his videos. Seriously. Your stuff is professional grade quality, man. Like it's amazing. When I used to do YouTube videos back in the day, and even whenever I was doing reviews, like I really wish I could make stuff that was even half as good as yours. And I mean that. I'm not just trying to be like inspiring. Like I really do love the work that you do. It's amazing. And
thank you.
Just one last thing to plug. Follow me on Twitter at FlameLognet, and yeah, thank you very much for having me, man.
Absolutely. Man, you're too kind. I appreciate your kind words. Thank you. And, in terms of, like, writing output, I got to give it up to you. You, like, for everything that, like, I always feel like, man, because I want to get these videos out and I want to do this stuff. And I understand that my passion is the video editing, and I want to work up to interviewing people and, and going to studios and interviewing devs and talking to people. And I know that it works out kind of serendipitously that I get to, like when I work on like a big retrospective or something, to be able to basically take my script for it and make it an article. And I love that Lords of Gaming gives me that, that leeway, but I see your output and I'm always just like, man, like, come on, find some time to like put up something, get something out there. But, Oh,
please. No matter how much stuff I do, it's never going to compare to being able to go to the opening of a limited run game store, sir. And I'm not going to lie. Everything you did over there, that was amazing. Seriously.
Hey. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And, I hope that, this isn't the last time. I would love to have you on again. And as soon as something comes up, I'm scheming a little bit. If anybody's listening this far, they can have this little nugget of just like any game that I happen to play that either if I did the review or I just know someone at Lognet is doing something or is at least playing it and beats it, maybe not even connected to a podcast, but just uploading review discussions and spoiler casts and trying to cultivate this almost like a cinematic universe, if you will, of people that write for Lognet. And if people enjoy the website and enjoy the people, will just be another vertical happening off on the side that it gives a platform for people to be on video and get podcasting experience. And I just think like the rising tide rises all ships. And if we all bolster each other and use our platforms to try to get us to that next plateau, I think it'll only benefit us all in the long run. And so that's something that I'm scheming on in the background. And so even if we play like a, I don't know,
Alive, something like that.
Something, or, you know, even something that's on Xbox, like if we wanted to have a KO the Kangaroo conversation, I would love to do it. I love doing stuff like this, you know, because 9 times out of 10 I'm watching content like this. So I'm just trying to make the content that I would want to watch, you know.
Well, you're succeeding. You just got to keep at it, and I hope to God you get to a really high place in this. You deserve it.
Hey, same. You know, the landscape continues to change, but I think that if we all just follow our passions, and, you know, this is the first time I've gone egoless into something. You know, I used to take my the like yellow, white, and red cables and plug them into my VCR, and I realized I could put a blank tape in and record whatever I was playing on my PS2. And I would record like Sly Cooper time trials, and like when friends would come over, I'd be like, ha, beat that. Or like show somebody like me beating a boss battle, or just recording the simple and clean Kingdom Hearts intro so I could watch it whenever I wanted. I've always just felt that video stuff connected to video games is like something I'm really passionate about, and going down this road has been like it's like the first time like I just started doing it and putting in the work, and everything started to fall into place. And so I'm just going to continue down that road. And I think if we're all doing that, then a similar result will happen for us all. And I see you on that path as well. So it's really exciting.
Amen, brother.
Yeah. Well, hey, again, thank you for your time. I'll go ahead and let's see. Well, do the proper outro. Well, that was episode 24 of Me, Myself, and I, a Nintendo podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Again, if you enjoy the show, you can show your support by simply following the show on your podcast service of choice, subscribing to Hitbox Detective on YouTube, and it's Flame Lognet on Twitter. And that's right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. And I upload on my YouTube channel, the video component of the podcast goes up there. You can also find the audio only stuff everywhere that you find podcasts. And if you follow me on Twitter at Hitbox Detective, that's another great way. And don't forget to write in at memyselfandI.pod@gmail.com or in the comments. And again, thank you for your support. Take care of yourselves. And remember, leave luck to the heavens. You want to say anything, Joe?
Nah.
Cool. All right. Peace.
Peace.